The crystal chandelier blurred above Grace's head as her knees buckled. 7 months pregnant, designer gown, luxury gala, and the last thing she heard before hitting the marble floor was laughter. Not concern, not gasps of worry, laughter. Sharp, delighted, cruel. It came from her husband's mistress, the woman everyone knew about except Grace, the woman who had been there all along, hiding in plain sight, at restaurants, at parties, even at Grace's own anniversary dinner. While Grace lay on cold marble, her unborn baby's heartbeat racing, that laughter echoed through the ballroom, and Grace realized something terrifying. Everyone knew, her friends, her husband's colleagues, society wives, they all knew about the affair. They had watched it happen for 18 months, and nobody said a word. But what Grace didn't know yet, what nobody in that ballroom knew, was that her brother was about to walk through those doors. Bennett Ashford, billionaire tech entrepreneur. And he was about to make everyone who laughed regret it. Because this story isn't just about a cheating husband. It's about stolen millions, federal crimes, a mistress who wasn't what she seemed, and a pregnant woman who discovered she was stronger than anyone imagined. This is the story of one night that destroyed everything, and the woman who rose from the ashes. Stay with me, because what happens next will shock you. The crystal chandelier blurred above Grace's head as her knees buckled, and the last thing she heard before hitting the marble floor was laughter. Grace Hartley stood near the silent auction tables at the Metropolitan Arts Gala. The ballroom stretched before her in a haze of champagne and diamonds. 7 months pregnant, her swollen ankles squeezed into designer heels that cost more than her first car. The emerald gown no longer fit quite right. The fabric pulled across her belly, too tight, too revealing of what her body had become. She watched Richard across the room, her husband, 6 years of marriage. His hand rested on Vanessa Crane's lower back. Too familiar, too long. His fingers spread wide against the red silk of her dress, the same way he used to touch Grace, before the pregnancy, before the distance, before everything changed. The room tilted. Grace's vision narrowed to a tunnel, black edges creeping inward. Her water glass slipped from her fingers. The crash drew every eye in the ballroom. Crystals shattering against marble. The sound echoed, amplified, unbearable. She reached for the auction table. Missed. Her hand grasped air. The floor rushed up to meet her. Fast. Too fast. No time to brace. Her hip hit first, then her shoulder. Pain bloomed hot and immediate. Voices erupted around her. Gasps, shouts, someone screamed. Grace's hand instinctively covered her belly. The baby. Please, God, let the baby be okay. She felt movement inside. A kick, strong, alive. Thank God, thank God, thank God. Through the ringing in her ears, Grace heard a voice, sharp, delighted, female. Oh my God, she's so dramatic. Always making everything about her. Vanessa. The laughter that followed was worse than the words. Not loud, not obvious, conspiratorial. Like everyone was in on a joke Grace never understood. Like her pain was entertainment. Like her collapse was performance art for their amusement. Hands reached for her, too many hands. Pulling, lifting, voices blurred together into meaningless noise. Someone called for a doctor. Someone else said to give her space. A woman's perfume choked her. Too strong, too sweet. Grace turned her head and dry heaved. Richard appeared, finally, crouching beside her in his tuxedo. But his eyes darted to Vanessa first, checking on her, making sure she was okay. Then to the crowd, calculating the damage to his reputation. Then reluctantly to his wife. Grace, what are you doing? His voice was low, annoyed, like she had spilled wine on his shirt. People are staring. Grace tried to speak. Her tongue felt thick, heavy. The words wouldn't come. She just stared at him. This man she married, this stranger with Richard's face. A security guard knelt on her other side. He had kind eyes, older, weathered. Ma'am, can you hear me? Can you tell me your name? Grace, she whispered, Grace Hartley. Good, that's good. Can you tell me what happened? What happened? Grace's mind spun. She was standing. Then she wasn't. Simple. Except nothing about this was simple. Nothing about tonight was simple. Nothing about her life had been simple for 18 months. Maybe longer. Maybe 6 years. I don't know, Grace said. I just felt dizzy, hot. Everything went black. The security guard nodded, spoke into his radio. We need paramedics at the Metropolitan Arts Center. Woman collapsed, pregnant, approximately 7 months. Conscious and alert, but disoriented. Richard stood, brushed off his tuxedo pants. This is unnecessary. Grace just needs to sit down. Have some water. She's fine. Sir, I need you to step back, the security guard said. Not unkindly, but firmly. The paramedics will assess her condition. Grace lay on the cold marble floor. Hundreds of eyes stared down at her. Society matrons in their jewels, businessmen in their power, young socialites with their phones out, recording, filming. This would be on Instagram within minutes. Grace Hartley's public humiliation. Wife of Richard Hartley. Pregnant and pathetic. Collapsing at a gala like some Victorian maiden. She closed her eyes, tried to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The way her yoga instructor taught her. Before she got too pregnant for yoga, before Richard suggested she stop going, too much exertion and too risky. Better to stay home. Rest. Be careful. Grace opened her eyes, turned her head. Through the forest of legs and designer gowns, she saw Vanessa, still standing where Richard left her, 26 years old. Beautiful. Thin. Everything Grace used to be. Everything Grace would never be again. Vanessa met her gaze, smiled, not a friendly smile, a victorious smile. She raised her champagne glass, a toast, to Grace's downfall, to her own triumph. The paramedics arrived, two of them, a man and a woman, professional, efficient. They asked questions Grace barely heard. Blood pressure cuffs squeezed her arm, pen light in her eyes, fingers checking her pulse, all while lying on the floor of the Metropolitan Arts Center, all while society watched. Your blood pressure is elevated, the female paramedic said. 150/95. That's concerning at this stage of pregnancy. We need to transport you to the hospital for evaluation. No, Grace said automatically. I'm fine, I just need a minute. Ma'am, you collapsed. You're pregnant. Your blood pressure is dangerously high. You need medical attention. Richard crouched down again. He put his hand on Grace's shoulder. For show. For the cameras. For the witnesses. Grace, honey, let them take you to the hospital. Just to be safe. For the baby. For the baby. Not for Grace. Never for Grace. Everything was for the baby now. The baby Richard never wanted. The baby that ruined his carefully constructed exit strategy. Grace wanted to refuse. Wanted to stand up. Walk out on her own. Prove she was fine. But her body betrayed her. When she tried to sit up, the room spun. Her stomach lurched. The paramedics caught her before she fell again. We're going to put you on a stretcher, the male paramedic said. Try not to move. They lifted her, strapped her in. The ceiling passed overhead as they wheeled her through the ballroom. Every face turned to watch. Grace kept her eyes closed, couldn't bear to see their expressions. Pity, curiosity, satisfaction. She heard whispers, fragments of conversation. 7 months pregnant and still trying to fit into a size 4. I heard she's been having problems. The pregnancy wasn't planned. Richard must be mortified. Well, what did she expect, trapping a man like that? The whispers followed her out of the ballroom, down the corridor, into the ambulance bay. Even when the doors closed, even when the sirens started, Grace could still hear them, would always hear them. She lay in the ambulance, fluorescent lights too bright, medical equipment beeping. The female paramedic sat beside her, took her blood pressure again, frowned at the reading. Is anyone riding with you to the hospital? The paramedic asked. Grace thought of Richard, still back at the gala, still worried about appearances, still standing too close to Vanessa. No, Grace whispered. There's no one. The paramedic squeezed her hand. You're not alone. We're right here. And your baby is strong. I can hear the heartbeat. Everything is going to be okay. But Grace knew better. Nothing was okay. Nothing had been okay for a long time. She had just been too afraid to admit it, too afraid to face the truth everyone else already knew. She was the only one who didn't know her marriage was over, the only one who didn't see her husband's affair, the only one who believed his lies. She had been sitting in the parked car of her own life, engine running, unable to go inside, because the moment she opened that door, she would have to face what she already knew. The ambulance pulled away from the Metropolitan Arts Center, away from the Gala, away from Richard, away from the life Grace thought she had, towards something unknown, something terrifying, something necessary. Grace's hand rested on her belly. The baby kicked again, once, twice. A reminder she wasn't truly alone. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Mother and child, ready or not. Emergency room lights burned white and relentless overhead. Grace lay in a curtained bay. The sounds of the hospital pressed in from all sides, machines beeping, voices calling, footers rushing past. Somewhere a child cried, somewhere someone moaned in pain. Grace closed her eyes and tried to disappear into the thin mattress. Dr. Elena Ross pulled the curtain aside and entered. 45 years old, gray streaking through her dark hair. Warm brown eyes that had seen everything and judged nothing. She had been Grace's obstetrician since the positive pregnancy test 7 months ago. The only person who seemed to genuinely care how Grace felt. Not just the baby, Grace herself. "Well, this is not how I expected to see you tonight," Dr. Ross said. She washed her hands at the small sink, snapped on gloves. "Tell me what happened." Grace recounted the gala, the dizziness, the fall. She left out the laughter, left out Vanessa, left out the way Richard looked at his mistress instead of his wife. Some humiliations were too fresh to speak aloud. Dr. Ross listened without interrupting. She examined Grace with gentle efficiency, pressed cold fingers against Grace's swollen ankles, wrapped the blood pressure cuff around her arm, pumped it tight, watched the numbers climb. Her expression tightened. 160/100, Dr. Ross said quietly. "That's not good, Grace. That's dangerously high. You're showing signs of preeclampsia." "What does that mean?" "It means your blood pressure is so high it's putting both you and the baby at risk. It can lead to seizures, stroke, placental abruption. We need to monitor you very carefully." Grace's hand went to her belly, protective, instinctive. "Is the baby okay?" "The baby's heartbeat is strong, but if your blood pressure doesn't come down, we may need to consider early delivery." "I'm only 30 weeks. "I know, which is why we're going to do everything we can to avoid that. But Grace, I need you to understand how serious this is. Stress is a major factor in preeclampsia. Extreme stress can be life-threatening." "Stress," Grace almost laughed. Where would she even begin to catalog the stress? The absent husband, the public affair, the isolation, the loneliness, the way she had slowly disappeared into the role of perfect wife until there was nothing left of the person she used to be. "I'll try to relax," Grace said. The words sounded absurd even as she spoke them. Dr. Ross sat on the edge of the bed, took off her gloves, looked at Grace with those kind, knowing eyes. "Grace, I've been a doctor for 20 years. I can read a chart, but I can also read people. Something is very wrong, and it's not just medical. Do you want to talk about it?" Grace opened her mouth, closed it. Where would she start? How could she explain the slow erosion of her marriage? The way Richard stopped touching her, stopped talking to her, stopped seeing her. How could she admit she knew about Vanessa, had known for months, but was too afraid to confront it, too afraid to lose the life she had built, even if that life was killing her? "I'm fine," Grace whispered, "just tired." Dr. Ross didn't push. She just nodded, stood, made notes on her tablet. "I'm admitting you overnight for observation. We need to monitor your blood pressure, make sure the baby stays stable. I want you on complete bed rest, no stress, no excitement, just rest." "Can I go home?" "Not tonight, maybe not for several days, depending on how you respond to treatment." Dr. Ross paused at the curtain. "Grace, you're not alone in this. Whatever is happening, there are people who can help. You just have to let them." She left. The curtain swished closed. Grace was alone again with the beeping machines and the fluorescent lights and the knowledge that everyone knew. Everyone saw, Everyone understood what Grace had been denying for 18 months. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table. Grace picked it up with shaking hands. Text from Richard. Doctor says you're fine. I'll pick you up in the morning. Try to get some rest. Not, are you okay? Not, I'm worried about you. Not, I'm on my way. Just the assumption that the doctor was wrong, that Grace was overreacting, that this was all some dramatic performance for attention. Grace stared at the message. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to scream, wanted to rage, wanted to demand why he wasn't here, why he cared more about staying at the gala than being with his pregnant wife in the emergency room. But what came out was, okay. She hated herself for it, for the automatic compliance, for the reflex to make things easy for him, to not make waves, to not be difficult. Grace Hartley, 30 years old, 7 months pregnant, lying in a hospital bed, still worried about inconveniencing her husband. The curtain pulled back again. Grace expected a nurse. Instead, Claire Bennington burst through, still in her gray courtroom suit, hair pulled back in a severe bun, makeup slightly smeared. She must have run from the car. Claire never ran. Litigation attorneys didn't run. They strode with purpose in commanded rooms. But Claire was running now. What the hell happened? Claire demanded. She grabbed Grace's hand, squeezed tight. I got your text. Left dinner immediately. Are you okay? Is the baby okay? Grace started to give the standard answer. I'm fine. Everything's fine. But looking at Claire, her best friend since college, the one person who never stopped calling even when Grace stopped answering, the words that came out were different. No, Grace said. Her voice broke. I'm not okay. Nothing is okay. Claire pulled a chair close, sat, didn't let go of Grace's hand. Tell me. So Grace told her about the gala, about watching Richard touch Vanessa, about the laughter when she fell, about the text message that proved Richard cared more about appearances than his wife's health. The words poured out, months of silence breaking open, years of holding everything inside finally released. Claire listened without interrupting. Her jaw tightened with each revelation. Her eyes grew harder. When Grace finished, Claire took a deep breath. Honey, Claire said slowly, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. Grace's stomach dropped. What? I've seen them together, Richard and Vanessa, multiple times, at restaurants where Richard claimed to be at business dinners, at the theater, at a hotel bar in Midtown. I've seen them, Grace, and it wasn't accidental. It wasn't innocent. How long? Grace whispered. How long have you known? 2 years. 2 years. The words hit like a physical blow. 2 years Claire had known. 2 years of keeping the secret. 2 years of watching Grace pretend everything was fine. Why didn't you tell me? Claire's eyes filled with tears. I tried. Remember 2 years ago when I said Richard seemed distant? When I suggested marriage counseling? When I asked if you were happy? You shut me down every time. You said everything was perfect. Bogged. That I was reading too much into things. That Richard was just stressed about work. You didn't want to hear it, Grace, so I stopped saying it. Grace wanted to be angry, wanted to blame Claire for not pushing harder, but she couldn't because Claire was right. Grace had shut her down, had refused to listen, had built walls around the truth so high that even her best friend couldn't scale them. When did it start? Grace asked. The affair. When did it start? Claire hesitated. I first saw them together about 18 months ago, but Grace, I think it started before that. The way they were with each other, it wasn't new. 18 months. Grace counted backward. Her mind did the math automatically. 18 months ago was right before she got pregnant. Right before that anniversary dinner when Richard suddenly wanted to reconnect. When he gave her diamond earrings and said he wanted to try for a baby. When Grace thought they were rebuilding their marriage. I got pregnant 2 months after you first saw them together, Grace said numbly. I know. He was already cheating, already with her, and then I got pregnant. Yes, Grace lay back against the pillows, stared at the ceiling tiles, counted them. 24 tiles in her line of sight, fluorescent lights buzzing behind translucent panels. Everything in the hospital was designed to be sterile, clean, impersonal, Perfect setting for having your life dismantled piece by piece. Her phone buzzed again. Grace looked at the screen. Text from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her open it. This is Margaret Hartley. I heard about your episode at the Gala. Very embarrassing for Richard. Please be more careful in the future. Her mother-in-law, not asking if she was okay, not concerned about her grandchild, just worried about embarrassment, about appearances, about Richard's reputation in society circles. Grace showed Claire the message. Claire read it. Her expression went cold. That woman is a piece of work. She's always hated me. She's always been jealous of you. You're everything she isn't. Kind, genuine, real. Margaret Hartley is nothing but old money and new veneers. Despite everything, Grace smiled. Small, brief, but real. Thank you for being here. Where else would I be? You're my sister, not by blood, but by choice. And that's stronger. Claire squeezed her hand again. Now I need to ask you something important, and I need you to answer honestly. No deflecting, no protecting Richard, just honesty. Okay? Grace nodded. Do you want to save this marriage? The question hung in the sterile air. Grace opened her mouth. The automatic yes formed on her tongue. That's what good wives said. That's what society expected, especially pregnant wives. You fought for your marriage. You sacrificed. You compromised. You made it work. But what came out was, I don't know. It was the most honest thing Grace had said in months, maybe years. She didn't know. Didn't know if the marriage was worth saving. Didn't know if Richard even wanted to save it. Didn't know if she had the strength to fight for something that had been dead for longer than she wanted to admit. That's okay, Claire said. Not knowing is better than lying to yourself. And Grace, whatever you decide, I'm here. Legal advice, emotional support, 3 a.m. phone calls, whatever you need. You're not alone. But Grace felt alone, desperately, completely alone. Lying in a hospital bed with a baby inside her and a marriage disintegrating around her. She had never felt more isolated, more adrift, more terrified of the future. The baby kicked, strong, insistent, demanding attention. Grace's hand covered the movement, her child, her responsibility, her reason to keep going even when everything else was falling apart. I'm not crazy, Grace said quietly, not to Claire, to herself, to the universe, to anyone listening. I know what I saw. I know what I heard. I'm not imagining this. No, Claire agreed. You're not crazy. You're seeing clearly for the first time in years, and that's terrifying, but it's also necessary. A nurse came in, checked Grace's vitals, hung a new UAV bag, adjusted the fetal monitor, left without much conversation. Hospital efficiency. Grace was just another patient, another case, another woman having another crisis. Nothing special, nothing unique. But to Grace, this felt like the end of the world. Claire stayed until visiting hours ended, promised to come back first thing in the morning, threatened to bring coffee and real food because hospital food was punishment enough without adding medical trauma. She kissed Grace's forehead, squeezed her hand one more time, left. Grace was alone with her thoughts and her machines and her unborn child. 3 in the morning came, then 4. Sleep wouldn't come. Her mind spun in endless circles, replaying every moment, every sign she missed, every time she made excuses for Richard's behavior. She reached for her phone, opened Instagram, searched for Vanessa Crane. The account was public. Vanessa wanted to be seen, wanted attention, posted carefully curated photos of her perfect life. Grace scrolled through months of evidence she had been too afraid to look for. There, a photo from 6 months ago. Vanessa at a restaurant, the same restaurant Richard claimed to have a client dinner. The caption, sometimes work dinners are the best dinners. 3 months ago, Vanessa at a charity event, wearing a necklace Grace had never seen. The caption, gifts from someone special. 1 month ago, Vanessa and Richard at a coffee shop, his face partially visible in the background. The caption, my favorite morning tradition. Grace's hands shook. She kept scrolling. Every photo told a story. Every caption was a message. Vanessa wasn't hiding the affair. She was flaunting it. broadcasting it to anyone paying attention. And Grace hadn't been paying attention, hadn't wanted to see, hadn't allowed herself to know what everyone else already knew. The humiliation burned hot and complete. Grace set down her phone, stared at the ceiling, listened to her baby's heartbeat on the monitor. Steady, strong, alive. "I'm so sorry," Grace whispered. "I'm sorry you're going to be born into this mess. I'm sorry your father is a liar. I'm sorry your mother was too weak to see the truth, but I promise you, I promise, things are going to change. I'm going to change. For you, for us. No more hiding, no more pretending, no more sitting in the parked car. I'm going inside. I'm facing this, starting now." The baby kicked again, agreement, approval, encouragement. Mother and child, already a team, already stronger together than Grace had been alone. Dawn broke outside the hospital window. Gray light filtered through the blinds. A new day, the first day of Grace's new life. Ready or not, Grace couldn't sleep. The hospital bed was too hard, the pillow too flat. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Vanessa's face. That cruel smile, that triumphant toast, that laughter echoing through the ballroom. 3 in the morning, the worst hour, when every anxiety magnified, when every fear felt insurmountable, when the darkness pressed in from all sides and morning seemed impossibly far away. Grace reached for her phone again. She knew she shouldn't, knew looking would only hurt more, but she couldn't stop herself. She opened Instagram, Vanessa's profile, started scrolling backward through time, documenting the affair photo by photo, 6 months back, 8 months, 10 months, each image a knife in Grace's chest. Vanessa at restaurants, Vanessa in designer clothes, Vanessa wearing jewelry Grace had never seen but should have recognized, because she had been there when Richard picked it out. He said it was for clients, important clients, women clients who deserved thoughtful gifts. Grace had believed him, had even helped him choose. That sapphire bracelet for the CEO's wife, those pearl earrings for the investor's daughter, that diamond pendant for the very special client. They weren't for clients. They were for Vanessa. Grace had been shopping for her husband's mistress. The thought made her stomach turn. She barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting. Morning sickness had ended months ago. This was pure disgust, pure rage, pure humiliation. She rinsed her mouth, splashed water on her face, looked at herself in the small mirror. Who was this woman? Swollen, exhausted, hollow-eyed. Grace didn't recognize her own reflection. Somewhere in 6 years of marriage, she had disappeared, become someone else, someone smaller, someone quieter, someone who accepted lies and called it love. Grace returned to bed, picked up her phone, kept scrolling. Further back, 12 months, 14 months. There. A photo that stopped her completely. It was from their anniversary dinner. Last year, the night Richard took her to their favorite restaurant in Tribeca. The night he gave her diamond earrings. The night he said he wanted to reconnect, to try for a baby, to build their future together. But in Vanessa's Instagram, there was a photo from that same night, same restaurant, different table. Richard was visible in the background, blurred but unmistakable. The caption read, "Best boss ever, so grateful he includes me in client dinners." Richard had brought his mistress to their anniversary dinner, seated her across the restaurant, made Grace feel special while Vanessa watched from the wings. He had played them both, orchestrated the entire evening. Grace's romantic anniversary was Vanessa's inside joke. The phone slipped from Grace's hands, clattered against the bed rail. She didn't pick it up, just stared at the ceiling and tried to breathe. In, out, in, out. The baby kicked, protesting the spike in Grace's heart rate, the rush of adrenaline, the flood of cortisol. "I'm sorry," Grace whispered to her belly. "I'm so sorry. Mama's trying to stay calm. I promise one." But calm felt impossible. Grace's mind raced. How many times had Richard done this? How many special occasions had he poisoned with his lies? How many moments had he shared with Vanessa while pretending to love Grace? Her birthday dinner 3 months ago. Their trip to the Hamptons last summer. Christmas with his family. Had Vanessa been there too? Hidden in plain sight. laughing at Grace's ignorance, celebrating Grace's blindness. Claire's words echoed in Grace's head. I've seen them together for 2 years. 2 years of everyone knowing, everyone watching, everyone waiting for Grace to wake up, while she played the perfect wife, hosted dinner parties, attended charity events, smiled for cameras, pretended everything was fine. The humiliation was complete, total, suffocating. Grace wanted to disappear, wanted to sink into the hospital bed and never resurface. How could she face anyone again? How could she hold her head up, knowing everyone had witnessed her degradation? Everyone had seen what she refused to see. The door opened. Claire stepped in, still wearing yesterday's suit, hair in a messy bun, no makeup. She looked exhausted, beautiful, real. I couldn't sleep, Claire said. She carried 2 cups of coffee. Figured you couldn't either. They have terrible coffees in the cafeteria, but it's hot and it's caffeinated, and that's all that matters at 3 in the morning. Grace took the cup, sipped. Claire was right. It was terrible, but it was also exactly what she needed. Claire settled into the chair beside the bed. What are you doing awake? Grace handed her the phone. Open to Vanessa's Instagram. The anniversary dinner photo. Claire looked. Her expression darkened. That son of a bitch. He brought her to our anniversary dinner. I see that. He made me feel special while she watched. He played us both like puppets. No, Claire said firmly. He played you. Vanessa knew exactly what she was doing. She chose to be his mistress, chose to participate in humiliating you. She's not a victim here, Grace. She's a willing accomplice. Grace knew Claire was right, but part of her still wanted to believe Vanessa had been deceived too. That Richard had lied to both of them, told Vanessa the marriage was over, promised her a future, because if Vanessa knew, if Vanessa participated willingly, then the cruelty was even worse than Grace imagined. Look at the comments, Grace said quietly. Claire scrolled down. Her jaw tightened. The comments were innocuous on the surface. Friends saying how lucky Vanessa was, how wonderful her boss was, how jealous they were of her life. But underneath, hidden in plain sight, there were messages only insiders would understand. You two look so good together. When's the wedding? He knows what he wants. Lucky girl. The comments were from people Grace knew, society wives, business associates, and people she considered friends. They all knew, all of them, and they commented publicly, celebrated publicly, acknowledged the affair for anyone willing to see. Grace felt the walls closing in. The hospital room was too small, the air too thin. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process the scope of the betrayal. Everyone knew, Grace said. Her voice sounded hollow, distant. Everyone watched it happen, and nobody said anything. Nobody warned me. They just let me walk around like an idiot, smiling, playing hostess, being the perfect wife, while they all laughed behind my back. They're cowards, Claire said. Every single one of them. They saw you being hurt, and they chose silence. That says everything about them and nothing about you. But why? Why didn't anyone tell me? Claire set down the phone, took Grace's hands. Because telling would have been uncomfortable. It would have forced them to take sides, to make moral judgments, to risk their social standing. It was easier to watch, to whisper, to make the affair into entertainment. You weren't a person to them, Grace. You were a soap opera, a real-life drama they could watch unfold while eating canapes and drinking champagne. The words hurt because they were true. Grace had never been real to those people. She was Richard's wife, an accessory, a role, not a human being with feelings and dignity and worth. When she served her purpose, she was accepted. Now that Richard wanted to discard her, she was nothing, less than nothing, an embarrassment, a problem to be managed. Grace pulled her hands from Claire's, wrapped her arms around her belly. Her baby was the only pure thing in her life right now, the only relationship untainted by lies, the only love that felt real. I've been living in a house of mirrors, Grace said. Everything I thought was real was just reflection, distortion. I don't even know what the truth is anymore. Don't know what was real and what was performance. That's what gaslighting does, Claire said. It makes you doubt your own reality. Richard is a master at it. I've seen him in action. The way he twists your words, makes you feel crazy for noticing obvious things, convinces you that your instincts are wrong. That's not love, Grace. That's manipulation. That's abuse. Abuse. The word landed heavy. Grace had never thought of her marriage as abusive. Richard didn't hit her, didn't scream, didn't break things, but he broke her, slowly, systematically, with 1,000 small cruelties disguised as love, with isolation disguised as protection, with control disguised as care. I knew, Grace admitted. Some part of me always knew. The way he'd shower after coming home, the way he'd mute his phone around me, the way he'd accuse me of being paranoid whenever I questioned him. I knew, but I told myself I was wrong, that I was being a jealous wife, that I was hormonal, crazy, ungrateful. I gaslit myself. Claire nodded. That's the final stage. When the victim internalizes the abuser's voice, becomes their own jailer. You're not there anymore, Grace. You see clearly now. That's why you're in so much pain. Because seeing the truth hurts. But it's necessary pain. Healing pain. Grace's phone buzzed, text from Richard. Just leaving the gala. Very successful night. The foundation raised $200,000. See you in the morning. Just leaving. It was 3:30 in the morning. The gala had ended hours ago. Where had Richard been? Grace opened Instagram again, searched Richard's tagged photos, found one posted 20 minutes ago. Richard and Vanessa at an after party, his arm around her shoulders, both smiling, looking happy, looking like a couple. Grace showed Claire. Claire's expression went murderous. I'm going to destroy him. No, Grace said. I'm going to destroy him. Or rather, he's going to destroy himself. I'm just going to step back and let him. What do you mean? Grace felt something shift in audio, a door opening, a weight lifting, a decision made. She had been so afraid of losing Richard, so afraid of divorce, of single motherhood, of starting over. But lying in this hospital bed, looking at evidence of his betrayal, seeing his complete disregard for her health and safety, Grace realized the worst thing that could happen had already happened. She had already lost him. Maybe she never had him to begin with. I mean, I'm done, Grace said. Done pretending, done making excuses, done being the understanding wife. Richard wants to be with Vanessa. Fine, he can have her. And he can have all the consequences that come with that choice. Claire's eyes gleamed. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I want a divorce. I want him out of my life. I want to raise this baby alone rather than in a house full of lies. I want my self-respect back. Grace felt tears on her cheeks, not sad tears, angry tears, liberating tears. I deserve better than this. My baby deserves better than this. Yes, Claire said fiercely. Yes, you do, and I'm going to help you get it. I'm going to need a lawyer. You're looking at one. I'm officially representing you as of this moment. Pro bono. Because you're my sister, and because watching Richard implode is going to be the highlight of my career. Despite everything, Grace laughed. Small, broken, but real. He's going to fight. He's going to make this ugly. Let him. I've handled worse. And Grace, there's something you should know. I did some digging after I left here earlier. Called in some favors. Richard's hedge fund is in trouble. Bad investments, angry clients, rumors of impropriety. If I look hard enough, I bet I'll find something actionable. Grace's mind raced. Richard had been stressed about work lately, more stressed than usual. Drinking more, sleeping less, taking calls at odd hours. She had assumed it was normal business pressure. But what if it was more? What if Richard's affair wasn't the only secret he was keeping? Find out, Grace said. Find out everything. I want to know who I married. Want to know what else he's been hiding. Consider it done. A nurse came in, checked Grace's blood pressure, made notes on the chart. It's coming down. That's good. Dr. Ross will be pleased. Try to rest. Both of you. The nurse left. Grace and Claire sat in comfortable silence, the kind of silence only true friends could share. No need for words, just presence, just solidarity, just the knowledge that Grace wasn't alone anymore. She had been alone for so long, isolated in her marriage, but not anymore. "Thank you," Grace said, "for being here, for not giving up on me when I pushed you away." "I'll never give up on you," Claire promised. That's what sisters do. We show up, we tell the truth, we fight beside each other. Always. Grace finished her terrible coffee, lay back against the pillows, felt exhaustion pulling at her finally, the adrenaline fading, the shock receding, leaving behind a strange sense of peace. Or not peace exactly. Resolution. The decision had been made, the path chosen. No more waiting, no more hoping things would magically improve, no more denial. She was getting a divorce. She was going to be a single mother. She was going to rebuild her life from scratch. The thought was terrifying, overwhelming, but also strangely liberating. For the first time in years, Grace's future belonged to her. Not to Richard, not to society, not to anyone's expectations. Just her. "Go home," Grace told Claire. "Get some sleep. You look like death." "So do you." "I'm in a hospital. I have an excuse." Claire stood, stretched, winced. "I'll be back in the morning, bringing real food, and my laptop. We have a lot of work to do." "Claire?" "Yeah? If you find something that could hurt Richard, will you tell me?" Claire met her eyes. "Every single detail, I promise. No more secrets, no more protection, just truth, however ugly it gets." "Good." Claire left. Grace was alone again, but it felt different this time. Less suffocating, less desperate. She was alone but not helpless. Alone but not defeated. Alone but not without resources. Grace picked up her phone one more time, looked at Vanessa's Instagram, the anniversary dinner photo, the cruel caption, the knowing comments. She had been staring at this evidence for hours, letting it hurt her, letting it define her. But no more. Grace did something she should have done months ago. She blocked Vanessa's account, blocked everyone who commented on that photo, blocked every single person who watched her humiliation and said nothing. One by one, Weisschum. Name by name, cutting out the rot, removing the poison. Her phone was lighter when she finished. Her contacts list smaller, but cleaner, purer. Only real people remained. Only people who cared. Claire, her old boss from the museum, college friends she had lost touch with, people who knew Grace before Richard, people who might remember who she used to be and help her find that person again. The hospital room grew quiet. Outside the window, the sky began to lighten. Not quite dawn, but the promise of dawn. The darkest hour was ending. Morning was coming. Grace closed her eyes. Let sleep take her finally. Her last thought before drifting off was simple, clear, certain. This ends now. No more victim, no more ignorance, no more Grace Hartley the wife. Just Grace. Starting over. Starting right now. Grace woke to sunlight and voices. Her eyes felt gritty. Her mouth tasted like old coffee and regret. The hospital room came into focus slowly. White walls, beeping machines, IV line in her arm. For a moment, she forgot where she was, why she was here. Then memory crashed back. The gala, the fall, Richard, Vanessa, everything. The voices were coming from outside her room. Claire's voice, sharp, insistent, and another voice, male, deep, familiar in a way that made Grace's chest ache. The door opened. Claire entered first. Behind her was Bennett Ashford, Grace's brother, 38 years old, 6'3", wearing a suit that probably cost more than Grace's wedding dress. His dark hair was graying at the temples. His eyes were the same green as Grace's, the same green as their mother's. "Bennett," Grace whispered. He crossed the room in 3 strides, sat on the edge of her bed, took her hand in both of his. His hands were warm, solid, real. "Hey, Gracie," Bennett said softly. "Claire called me, told me what happened. I got on the first flight out of San Francisco." Tears burned Grace's eyes. She hadn't seen Bennett in 3 months, not since Christmas. Richard always had reasons why they couldn't visit. Work obligations, social commitments. Bennett's schedule was too demanding. Better to just call, just video chat. Better not to inconvenience him. Grace had believed it, had accepted Richard's excuses, had let the distance grow between her and the one person who had always protected her, the one person who had raised her after their mother died, who had put his own life on hold to make sure Grace had everything she needed. "I'm sorry," Grace said. "I should have called, should have stayed in touch. I've been a terrible sister." "Stop," Bennett said firmly. "You've been a wife in a difficult marriage. That's not your fault. But I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere, so tell me, what do you need?" The question was so simple, so direct. Not, "What did you do wrong?" Not, "How did you let this happen?" Just, "What do you need?" Grace didn't know how to answer, didn't know where to start. Claire saved her by pulling a chair close and sitting down. "I filled Bennett in on the basics," Claire said. "The affair, the gala, your blood pressure. He knows about Richard and Vanessa." Bennett's jaw tightened. "I never liked him. From the first time you brought him home. Something was off. But you seemed happy, so I kept my mouth shut. I shouldn't have." "You couldn't have known," Grace said. "I should have looked harder, should have asked more questions, should have stayed more involved." Bennett took a breath, released it slowly. "But we're not going to waste time on regret. We're going to focus on solutions." "Claire says you want a divorce." "Yes." "Good. Richard doesn't deserve you, never did. But before we start divorce proceedings, I need to ask you something important. And I need you to answer honestly. Do you want to save the marriage? Is there any part of you that thinks this relationship can be salvaged?" Grace thought about it, really thought. Not the automatic yes that usually came. Not the response society expected. Not what a good wife should say. She thought about Richard, about 6 years together, about the man she married versus the man he had become. Or maybe the man he always was and Grace had been too naive to see. She thought about lying in this hospital bed alone while Richard partied with his mistress. Thought about the anniversary dinner, the jewelry he bought for Vanessa, the years of gaslighting, the isolation, the slow erosion of her self-worth. She thought about her baby, the innocent life depending on Grace to make good choices, smart choices, healthy choices. "No," Grace said. The word felt solid, sure. "I don't want to save it. The marriage has been dead for longer than I want to admit. I'm just finally ready to bury it." Bennett nodded. "Okay then, we're going to fix this. But first I need to make a call." He pulled out his phone, dialed, put it on speaker. It rang twice before a man answered. "Ashford, it's 7 in the morning." The voice was rough with sleep. "Marcus, I need a favor." "Name it." "Everything you can find on Richard Hartley, hedge fund manager at Hartley Investments, and Vanessa Crane, his executive assistant. I want financials, phone records, emails, property records, everything. Legal everything. Let's call it creatively obtained." A pause, then, "You know that's going to cost you." "Bill me, Bunny. I want a full report by end of business today." "That's 12 hours. You're the best investigator in New York. You'll manage." Another pause. "This personal?" "It's for Grace. Say no more. I'll have preliminary findings to you by noon." Bennett hung up, looked at Grace. "Marcus is a private investigator, former FB. He's going to dig into Richard's life, find out what else he's been hiding. Because men who cheat usually have other secrets too." Grace felt a flutter of hope, or maybe fear. What if he finds something bad? Then we'll deal with it. But knowledge is power, Gracie. Right now, Richard thinks he has all the power. He thinks you're weak, dependent, that you'll accept whatever scraps he throws you because you have no other options. We're going to show him exactly how wrong he is. The door opened. Dr. Ross entered with a tablet and a smile. "Good morning, Grace. Your blood pressure is much better, down to 130/85. Still elevated but manageable. How are you feeling?" "Tired, but better." "Good. I'm going to release you today, but with strict conditions. You're on bed rest. That means no work, no stress, no excitement. You rest, you eat, you stay calm. Understood?" "Yes." "Where will you be staying?" Dr. Ross asked. "I need an address for follow-up." Grace opened her mouth, closed it. She couldn't go back to the penthouse. couldn't face Richard, couldn't sleep in their bed knowing what she knew. But where else could she go? She had no family except Bennett, no close friends except Claire. Richard had made sure of that. She'll stay with me, Bennett said. I still have Mom's brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. Plenty of room, quiet, safe. That works, Dr. Ross said. She made notes on her tablet. I'll arrange home health visits. A nurse will check on you 3 times a week. Monitor your blood pressure. Make sure the baby is thriving. Grace, I need you to take this seriously. Preeclampsia can escalate quickly. If you experience headaches, vision changes, or decreased fetal movement, you go straight to the emergency room. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Understood? Understood. Dr. Ross left to process discharge papers. Grace looked at Bennett. You kept the brownstone? I thought you sold it years ago. I couldn't. Too many memories. Mom's paintings are still on the walls. Her piano in the living room. Her garden out back. It felt wrong to let strangers live there. So I kept it. Rented it out occasionally, but mostly it just sits empty, waiting. Waiting for what? Bennett's expression softened. For you to need it. The words hit Grace hard. Her brother had kept their childhood home for 14 years, maintained it, preserved it, just in case Grace needed a safe place to land. He had known, somehow, that one day she would need refuge, and he had made sure it was there. Thank you, Grace whispered. You don't need to thank me. You're my sister. I'll always take care of you. That's not negotiable. Claire stood, stretched. I'm going to run to your place and pack you a bag. I still have keys, remember? I'll grab clothes, toiletries, your laptop, anything else you need. My mother's photo album, Grace said. It's in the bottom drawer of my dresser, and my journal. It's hidden in the closet behind the shoeboxes. Claire raised an eyebrow. You keep a journal? Started it 6 months ago, after a particularly bad fight with Richard. I needed somewhere to process everything. Somewhere he wouldn't find it. Smart. I'll get it. Be back in 2 hours. Claire left. Grace was alone with Bennett. He hadn't let go of her hand, just sat there, solid, present, the way he had been her whole life. When their father died in a car accident when Grace was 3, when their mother was diagnosed with cancer when Grace was 14, when she died 2 years later. Bennett had been there, always there. I messed up, Grace said quietly. Married the wrong person, ignored all the red flags, let him isolate me from everyone who cared. I'm 30 years old and I've wasted 6 years on a man who never loved me. You didn't waste anything. You learned. You survived. You are stronger than you think. Bennett squeezed her hand. And for what it's worth, I don't think Richard is capable of loving anyone, except maybe himself. Vanessa thinks he loves her. Vanessa is 26 years old and sleeping with her boss. She's not exactly making great decisions either. Grace almost smiled. Claire said she's going to help me destroy him. Claire's a pit bull in Prada. Richard has no idea what's coming. Bennett's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His expression hardened. Speak of the devil. What? Richard just tried to access your joint accounts, withdraw everything, but I had them frozen an hour ago. Grace blinked. You can do that? I'm on the board of directors at 3 major banks. I made some calls, told them there were concerns about financial elder abuse and potential fraud. They froze the accounts pending investigation. Richard can't touch a penny without both signatures. And you're not signing anything. He's going to be furious. Let him be furious. He should have thought about that before he stole from you. Because that money is half yours, Grace. Every penny, community property. New York law is very clear about that. Grace felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Not fear, not sadness. Power. For the first time in years, she felt powerful. Like she had agency. Like her choices mattered. Like she wasn't just a victim waiting for rescue. She was a woman taking control of her own life. What else can we do? Grace asked. Bennett smiled, not a nice smile, a predatory smile. We can make Richard's life very difficult, very public, very expensive. But first we wait for Marcus's report, see what other skeletons are hiding in Richard's closet. Then we decide our strategy. A nurse came in with discharge papers. Grace signed them, got dressed in the clothes she wore to the gala. The emerald dress was wrinkled, stained, humiliating, but it was all she had. Bennett draped his suit jacket over her shoulders. It hung huge but warm. They left the hospital through a side exit, avoiding reporters who had somehow gotten wind of the story. Society wife collapses at Gala, pregnant and alone. It was gossip gold. Grace kept her head down. Let Bennett guide her to his car, a black sedan with a driver waiting. The drive to Brooklyn Heights was quiet. Grace watched Manhattan pass outside the window, the city she had lived in for 10 years, the city where she built her career as an art curator, the city where she met Richard, the city where her life fell apart. It looked different now, less magical, more ordinary, just buildings and streets and people living their lives. The brownstone stood on a tree-lined street, 4 stories of red brick and white trim, window boxes full of flowers. The garden gate Grace used to swing on as a child. Home, real home. Not the sterile penthouse Richard decorated with a designer. This place held memories, love, safety. Bennett helped Grace up the front steps, unlocked the door. The smell hit her immediately. Lemon polish and old books. Her mother's signature scent. Grace stood in the entryway and felt 14 again, coming home from school. Her mother at the piano, playing Chopin, the sound filling every corner of the house. "I haven't changed anything," Bennett said quietly. "Couldn't bring myself to." Grace walked through the rooms, the living room with her mother's paintings, the kitchen with the farmhouse table where they ate dinner every night, the study where her father used to read. Everything preserved exactly as she remembered. "My old room?" Grace asked. "Upstairs, first door on the right. Still has your patchwork quilt and your bookshelf full of Nancy Drew mysteries." Grace climbed the stairs slowly, pregnant and exhausted. She opened the door to her childhood bedroom. Sure enough, everything was the same. The quilt her mother made, the posters of art museums she wanted to visit, the desk where she did homework, the window seat where she read for hours. Grace sat on the bed. The mattress gave the same familiar squeak. She lay back, stared at the ceiling, saw the glow-in-the-dark stars she and Bennett put up when she was 10. They were still there, still glowing faintly even in daylight. Bennett appeared in the doorway. "Get some rest. Claire will be here soon with your things. I'll be downstairs making calls. Yell if you need anything." "Bennett?" "Yeah, I'm scared." He came and sat beside her, put his arm around her shoulders. "I know. Being scared is okay. Being scared means you're facing reality. And reality is scary sometimes. But you're not alone, Gracie. You have me. You have Claire. You have people who love you. People who will fight for you. Richard doesn't stand a chance." Grace leaned against her brother. Let herself be small for a moment. Let herself be protected. She had been trying to be strong for so long. Independent, capable. Never admitting she was drowning. Never asking for help. Pride, fear, shame. All the reasons people suffer in silence. But silence was over. Help had arrived. Grace didn't have to be strong right now. She just had to rest, heal, and trust that Bennett and Claire would handle things while she focused on keeping herself and her baby safe. "Thank you for keeping the house," Grace said. "Thank you for finally coming home." Bennett left. Grace was alone in her childhood room, 7 months pregnant, 30 years old, starting over. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had been so eager to leave this place, to grow up, to build her own life, and now she was back, full circle. Except this time she wasn't running from something. She was running toward something, toward herself, toward the person she used to be before Richard, before the lies, before the slow suffocation of her marriage. Grace's phone buzzed. Text from Richard. "What the hell did you do? The bank accounts are frozen. I can't access our money. Call me immediately." Our money, not your money, not family money, our money. The entitlement was breathtaking. Richard had cheated, had planned to leave, had stolen Grace's dignity, and he still believed he was entitled to everything, including money that was legally half hers. Grace didn't respond. Just blocked his number. One more name added to the growing list of people she was cutting from her life. It felt good, cathartic, like pulling weeds from a garden, creating space for healthy things to grow. She closed her eyes, listened to the sounds of the house, creaking floors, wind in the trees outside, distant traffic, city sounds filtered through old windows. Peace, real peace. For the first time in months, Grace felt safe. Her last thought before sleep was simple. I'm home, finally home, and nothing Richard does can touch me here. Grace woke to the smell of coffee and voices drifting up from the kitchen. She checked her phone. 2 in the afternoon, she had slept for 5 hours, deep, dreamless sleep, the kind she hadn't experienced in months. Her body ached. Her back hurt. The baby pressed against her bladder, but her mind felt clearer, sharper, ready. She used the bathroom, washed her face, changed into the yoga pants and oversized sweater Claire had packed for her. Nothing fit right anymore. Her body was foreign territory, all swelling and stretching, but the baby moved, strong kicks, healthy. That was all that mattered. And Grace walked downstairs carefully, one hand on the railing, one hand supporting her belly. Voices grew louder as she approached the kitchen. Bennett, Claire, and a third voice she didn't recognize. They were gathered around the farmhouse table, laptops open, papers spread everywhere, coffee cups and empty pastry bags. Bennett looked up when Grace entered. Hey, you're awake. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck, but a well-rested truck. Grace poured herself decaf coffee from the pot, added cream. What's all this? This, Bennett said, is everything Marcus found on Richard in 12 hours. And Grace, you need to sit down, because it's bad. Grace sat. Claire squeezed her hand. The third person, a man in his 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes, nodded at her. Grace, this is Marcus Chen, best investigator in the city. He's been digging into Richard's life. What he found is going to change everything. Marcus pulled up a file on his laptop, turned it so Grace could see. Mrs. Hartley, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Your husband is in serious legal trouble, the kind of trouble that ends with federal prison. Grace's heart stuttered. What do you mean? I mean Richard has been committing securities fraud for the past 18 months, stealing from his clients, moving money through shell corporations, hiding assets in offshore accounts, and his assistant, Vanessa Crane, has been helping him do it. The kitchen tilted. Grace gripped the table edge. You're sure? Completely sure. I have documentation. Bank records, emails between Richard and Vanessa discussing transfers, code words, meeting times. They've been systematically emptying client accounts and covering it up with falsified statements. Marcus clicked through files. Grace saw spreadsheets, transaction records, emails with subject lines like Cayman transfer complete and Morrison account adjusted. Everything was professional, clinical, damning. How much money? Grace asked weakly. Approximately $8 million, stolen from 12 different clients over 18 months. Richard's hedge fund was underperforming. He panicked, made bad investments, tried to cover losses with client money. It's a classic Ponzi scheme, using new investors to pay old investors, except Richard got greedy, started moving money offshore for himself. And Vanessa helped him, Claire added. She wasn't just sleeping with him. She was his accomplice, creating false documentation, authorizing wire transfers. She's in this as deep as he is. Grace felt numb, disconnected from reality. Her husband wasn't just a cheater, he was a criminal, a thief, stealing from people who trusted him, people who gave him their retirement savings, their children's college funds, their futures. There's more, Marcus said. He pulled up another file. The affair started exactly 18 months ago, right when the fraud began. I have hotel records, restaurant receipts, text messages. Richard and Vanessa have been together this entire time. So the affair and the crime started simultaneously, Bennett said, which means they're connected. Vanessa knows about the fraud because she participated in it. She's leverage, and she's evidence. Grace's mind raced. 18 months ago, right before she got pregnant, right before that anniversary dinner when Richard suddenly wanted to reconnect. He wasn't trying to save our marriage, Grace said slowly. He was trying to cover his tracks, make me think everything was fine so I wouldn't ask questions about money. Exactly, Claire confirmed. The pregnancy was a problem for him. It locked him to you, made divorce complicated. He couldn't just disappear with Vanessa and the stolen money if you were pregnant with his child. That's why he was so upset when I told him, Grace said, memories clicking into place. I thought he was stressed about being a father, but he was stressed because I ruined his exit strategy. Marcus nodded. According to the evidence, Richard and Vanessa were planning to marry after your divorce, move to the Cayman Islands, live off the stolen money. Your pregnancy complicated everything. Did he want me to lose the baby? Grace asked. Her voice sounded hollow, distant. Marcus hesitated, looked at Bennett. Bennett's expression was murderous. Show her, Bennett said. Marcus pulled up text messages between Richard and Vanessa. Grace read them, each word a knife. Richard, she's pregnant. This is a disaster. Vanessa, can you convince her to terminate? Richard, no, she's Catholic, won't do it. Vanessa, then we wait. Miscarriages happen all the time in the first trimester. Richard, what are you suggesting? Vanessa, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying nature takes its course sometimes. Richard, she's high risk. Doctor said she needs to be careful, avoid stress. Vanessa, so give her stress, make her life difficult. Sometimes problems solve themselves. Grace stood, walked to the sink, vomited. Claire was there immediately, holding her hair, rubbing her back. Grace heaved until there was nothing left, just dry heaves and bitter taste. He wanted me to miscarry, Grace said. He tried to stress me into losing the baby. Yes, Bennett said quietly. That's what the evidence suggests. Grace rinsed her mouth, splashed water on her face. Her hands shook, her whole body shook. She turned to face them. 3 people who cared about her, who were fighting for her, who wouldn't let Richard destroy her. What do we do? Grace asked. How do we stop him? We don't have to stop him, Marcus said. He's already stopped. The evidence is overwhelming. I've compiled everything into a report. You have 2 options. Option 1, turn this evidence over to the SEC and the U.S. Attorney's Office. Richard gets arrested, goes to prison. The stolen money gets recovered and returned to victims. But Grace, you'll be involved in the investigation. Your finances will be scrutinized. Your life will become public. It won't be pleasant. What's option 2? Option 2, use this as leverage in the divorce. Threaten to go public unless Richard agrees to your terms, walks away quietly, gives you everything you want. No custody fight, no alimony dispute, just a clean break. He keeps his freedom. You keep your privacy. Grace looked at Bennett. What do you think I should do? I think, Bennett said carefully, that Richard deserves to go to prison. He's a thief, a liar, a man who tried to hurt his own child. He should face consequences. But Grace, it's your choice. Your life, your future, whatever you decide, I'll support you. Grace walked to the window, looked out at the garden. Her mother's roses were blooming, pink and white, beautiful. Her mother had planted them the year before she died, said they would outlive her, keep blooming long after she was gone. She was right. They were still here, still beautiful, still strong. Grace thought about her baby, about the life growing inside her, about the future she wanted to build, a future without Richard's shadow, without his toxicity, without his crimes coloring everything. She thought about the clients he stole from, people who trusted him, who needed that money, who had been betrayed just like Grace had been betrayed. They deserved justice, deserved to know the truth. Grace turned to face Marcus. Option 1, GG's, turn over everything to the authorities. I want Richard arrested. I want him prosecuted. I want him in prison where he belongs. Claire smiled, fierce and proud. That's my girl. But, Grace continued, I want Vanessa arrested too. She's not a victim. She's an accomplice. She helped him steal. She encouraged him to hurt me. To who somebody saw you out to hurt my baby. She doesn't get to walk away from this. Agreed, Marcus said. The evidence incriminates them both. They'll both face charges. How long until they're arrested? I'll take this to the U.S. Attorney's Office this afternoon. They'll want to verify everything, do their own investigation. But with documentation this complete, I'd say Richard and Vanessa will be arrested within a week, maybe sooner. A week. 7 days. Grace had 7 days before her life exploded into public scandal. 7 days to prepare, to rest, to get ready for the storm coming. One more thing, Grace said. The prenup. Richard made me sign a prenup before we got married. He said it was standard, that his family insisted. I didn't read it carefully, just signed where he told me to sign. Claire and Bennett exchanged glances. Grace, Claire said slowly, I need you to find that prenup, because I checked the county clerk's office. Nothing is on file. Prenups have to be filed to be legally binding. If Richard didn't file it, it doesn't exist. Why wouldn't he file it? Because he's sloppy, arrogant. He assumed you'd never challenge him, never fight back. Men like Richard think they're untouchable. They get careless. Grace felt hope flicker. So if there's no prenup, I'm entitled to half of everything? Exactly, community property, New York law. Everything acquired during the marriage is split 50-50. The penthouse, the cars, his hedge fund stake, bank accounts, investments, all of it. But most of it is stolen, Grace said. Most of it, but not all. Richard had personal wealth before the fraud, family money, his own investments, clean money. That's yours too. Or rather, half of it is yours. Bennett leaned forward. Grace, even if Richard goes to prison, you'll be financially secure. You and the baby. You won't have to worry about money. Between the divorce settlement and my support, you'll have everything you need. Tears burned Grace's eyes. Not sad tears, grateful tears. I don't know what I'd do without you two, without all of you. You'll never have to find out, Claire promised. We're a team, and we're going to win this. Marcus started packing up his laptop. I'll head to the U.S. Attorney's Office now. File the complaint. They'll probably want to interview you, Grace. Are you okay with that? Yes, I'll tell them everything I know, everything I saw, everything Richard said. I want to help build the case against him. Good. Cooperation will work in your favor. Show you were unaware of the fraud, that you're a victim too. Marcus stood, shook Grace's hand. Miss Hartley, you're doing the right thing. It's going to be hard, really hard. But on the other side, you'll be free, and your child will grow up knowing their mother had courage, had integrity. That matters more than you realize. He left. Grace sank into a chair, exhausted, overwhelmed, terrified, but also strangely calm. The decision was made. The wheels were in motion. There was no going back now. What happens next? Grace asked. Now, Bennett said, you rest, eat, take care of yourself and that baby. Claire and I will handle everything else. Lawyers, investigators, press statements. You don't lift a finger, you just focus on staying healthy. Richard is going to come here, Grace said. When he finds out what we've done, he'll come here. He'll try to intimidate me, threaten me. Let him try, Bennett said. His voice was cold, dangerous. This house has security cameras, an alarm system, and me. Richard sets foot on this property. He's the one who will be intimidated, I promise you that. Grace believed him. Bennett had always protected her, from bullies at school, from bad boyfriends in college, from the grief that tried to swallow her when their mother died. He would protect her now, from Richard, from the consequences of Richard's choices, from everything. I'm scared, Grace admitted, not of Richard, of everything else, of being a single mother, of starting over, of everyone knowing what happened, of being the subject of gossip and pity. Claire moved her chair closer, took Grace's hands. Listen to me. You are 30 years old, beautiful, talented, smart. You have a career you loved and can return to. You have money, family, friends. You have everything you need to rebuild your life. And Grace, you're not starting from nothing. You're starting from wisdom. You know who you are now. You know what you won't tolerate. You know your worth. That's not nothing, and that's everything. Grace wanted to believe her, wanted to feel the confidence Claire radiated, but mostly she felt tired, bone-deep tired, the kind of tired that came from carrying too much weight for too long. "I need to sleep," Grace said. "Then sleep," Bennett replied. "We'll be here when you wake up." "We're not going anywhere." Grace climbed the stairs slowly, back to her childhood room, back to the bed with the patchwork quilt. She lay down fully clothed, pulled the blanket over herself, closed her eyes. The baby kicked, strong, healthy, demanding attention. Grace's hand covered the movement. "It's okay," she whispered. "Mama's got you. We're going to be okay. I promise. Whatever happens, we're going to be okay." She almost believed it. Grace woke to shouting, male voices, angry, loud. Downstairs, she checked her phone. 7 in the evening. She had slept for 3 hours. The shouting continued, getting louder. One voice was Bennett's, the other was Richard's. Grace got out of bed carefully, walked to the top of the stairs. "Listen." "Where is my wife?" Richard demanded. "I know she's here. I want to see Grace, now." "Grace is resting. Doctor's orders. You're not seeing her." "I'm her husband. You can't keep me from her. That's illegal. That's kidnapping." "Grace is an adult. She chose to come here. That's not kidnapping. That's called leaving your lying ass." "You have no idea what you're talking about. You have always been jealous of me. Jealous that Grace chose me over staying close to you. You never wanted her to get married. Never wanted her to be happy." Bennett's laugh was cold, sharp. "Happy? You think Grace was happy? She collapsed at a gala because her blood pressure was so high from stress. Stress you caused. Stress from watching you parade your mistress around like she's your wife. I don't know what Grace told you, but Vanessa is my assistant. Nothing more. Grace is paranoid, hormonal. The pregnancy has made her unstable. Gaslighting doesn't work on me, Richard. I've seen the evidence. The hotel records, the restaurant receipts, the text messages. I know about the affair. I know about everything." A pause, then Richard's voice lower, more dangerous. "You've been spying on me. That's illegal. Invasion of privacy. I'll have you arrested." "Go ahead. Call the police. I'd love to explain to them why I hired an investigator. Love to show them what he found." "I don't think you want that conversation, Richard. I really don't." Grace walked down the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. She wasn't hiding anymore, wasn't cowering in her room while men decided her fate. This was her life, her decision, her confrontation. She reached the foyer. Bennett stood blocking the doorway. Richard was on the front porch, red-faced, disheveled, still wearing yesterday's tuxedo shirt, wrinkled now, stained with sweat. He looked smaller than Grace remembered, less imposing, just a man, a weak, selfish man. Richard saw her. His expression shifted, softened, calculated. "Grace, baby, thank God. Your brother won't let me see you. I've been so worried. Are you okay? Is the baby okay?" Grace didn't answer, just looked at him, really looked. Saw him clearly for the first time in years. The charm was still there. The handsome face, the practiced concern, but it was all performance, all manipulation. There was nothing real underneath. "Grace, we need to talk," Richard continued. He tried to step inside. Bennett didn't move, just stood there, immovable. "Please, let me in. Let me explain." "Explain what?" Grace asked. Her voice was calm, steady. "Explain Vanessa. Explain the affair. Explain bringing her to our anniversary dinner. Explain the text messages where you hoped I'd miscarry. Which part do you want to explain, Richard?" Richard's mask slipped, just for a second, but Grace saw it. The flash of panic, the calculation, the realization that she knew more than he thought. "I don't know what you're talking about," Richard said. He forced a laugh. "Grace, you're not thinking clearly. The pregnancy hormones, the stress. You're confused, making up stories that aren't true." "I have proof," Grace said quietly. "Bank records, emails, text messages, photos. I have everything, Richard. Your investigator was very thorough. Or rather, my brother's investigator was very thorough." Richard's face went pale, actually pale. The blood drained from his cheeks. His eyes darted to Bennett, then back to Grace. "You hired an investigator?" Grace, that's insane. That's paranoid. You violated my privacy. You violated our marriage, Grace shot back. You violated my trust, my dignity, my health. You don't get to talk to me about violations. Whatever you think you found, it's not what it looks like. I can explain everything. Just let me in. Let's talk privately, without your brother hovering like a bodyguard. No, Grace said, we're not talking privately. We're not talking at all. You are going to leave. You're going to stay away from me, and you're going to wait to hear from my attorney. That's Claire Bennington, by the way. You remember Claire, my best friend, the litigation attorney who's never lost a case. Richard's expression hardened. The charm dropped completely. What was underneath was ugly, entitled, cruel. You think you can threaten me? You think you can take my money and my reputation? I will destroy you in court, Grace. I will make your life hell. That baby, I'll fight for custody just to punish you. I'll drag you through so much legal mud you'll beg me to take you back. Grace felt something inside her snap. Not break, snap into place. Like a lock turning, like a door opening, like clarity finally arriving after years of fog. You're not getting custody, Grace said. You're not fighting for anything. Because, Richard, you're going to be in prison. Securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering. The U.S. Attorney's Office received a very detailed complaint this afternoon, complete with documentation. They'll be issuing subpoenas by tomorrow morning, arrest warrants by end of week. Richard froze. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. You're bluffing. I'm not bluffing. $8 million, Richard. Stolen from 12 clients over 18 months. Hidden in offshore accounts. You and Vanessa, both of you. Federal crimes, 20 years minimum, no parole. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. Bank statements, transfer records, emails between you and Vanessa discussing the Cayman accounts, the Morrison Family Trust, the Chen Retirement Fund. Should I continue? Because I have pages of documentation. Literally hundreds of pages. Richard tried to push past Bennett. Bennett's hand shot out, stopped him with one palm pressed against Richard's chest. Back up. Get your hands off me. Then stop trying to enter a private residence without permission. That's called trespassing. And unlike your crimes, I'd be happy to call the police about it. Richard stumbled backward, his face twisted with rage. You stupid bitch. You have no idea what you've done. You think you're so smart, so righteous? You're nothing, Grace. Nothing. You were nothing when I met you. Some art curator making $40,000 a year, living in a studio apartment in Queens. I made you, gave you everything. The penthouse, the lifestyle, the social standing. And this is how you repay me? Grace walked forward, stood beside Bennett, looked Richard directly in the eyes. You didn't make me. You unmade me. You took a confident, successful woman and turned her into someone small, someone scared, someone who apologized for existing. But I'm done being that person. I'm done being your victim. You'll regret this, Richard hissed. When you're alone, broke, raising a bastard child on welfare, you'll regret destroying me. The only bastard here is you, Grace said, and I won't be broke. Community property laws are very clear. Half of everything is mine. The penthouse, your hedge fund stake, bank accounts, all of it. And since you never filed the prenup, you made me sign. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. Richard's eyes went wide. I filed it. My lawyer filed it. My lawyer. No, Claire's voice came from behind Grace. She had appeared silently. Must have been listening from the living room. You didn't. I checked. Nothing on file at the county clerk's office, which means Grace is entitled to half of everything. And Richard, by everything, I mean your legitimate assets, not the stolen money. That's going back to your victims. But your family trust, your stock portfolio, your personal savings, half of that is Grace's. Richard looked between them. Grace, Bennett, Claire. 3 people united against him. 3 people who knew all his secrets, all his crimes, all his lies. He was outnumbered, Outmaneuvered, outmatched. Vanessa was right about you, Richard said to Grace. His voice was pure venom. You're pathetic, clinging to a man who doesn't want you, trying to trap me with a baby. She said you'd do this, try to destroy me when I finally found happiness. Vanessa's going to prison too, Claire said pleasantly. She's an accomplice, wire fraud, conspiracy. She's looking at 3 to 5 years minimum. Maybe more if the prosecution goes hard. So I wouldn't rely on her for emotional support. She'll be too busy planning her defense. Richard's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, read the screen. His face went from pale to gray. What did you do? What did we do? Bennett asked innocently. The bank accounts, my credit cards, my access to the hedge fund, everything is frozen. I can't access anything. I know, Bennett said. I had them frozen this morning, called in some favors, told the banks there were concerns about fraud and financial irregularities. They were very cooperative, especially when I mentioned I sit on 3 bank boards and would be happy to recommend audits. That's illegal. You can't freeze my accounts. I didn't freeze your accounts. I froze your and Grace's joint accounts, which I have every right to do as Grace's representative. She's my sister. She's vulnerable. She's protecting her interests. That's not illegal. That's smart. Richard's hands shook, actual shaking. Grace saw it and felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, just cold satisfaction. He had tried to destroy her, tried to stress her into losing her baby, tried to steal her money and her dignity. Now he was getting exactly what he deserved. I'll go to the media, Richard threatened. Tell them you're kidnapping Grace, that you're controlling her, that you're trying to steal her inheritance for yourself. Do it, Bennett said. Please do. I'd love to hold a press conference. Show reporters the evidence of your affair, your fraud, your attempts to harm your pregnant wife. Go ahead, Richard. Make this public. I dare you. Richard had no response, no threats left, no leverage. He stood on the porch like a deflated balloon. All the air gone out of him, all the power evaporated. Leave, Grace said quietly. Leave and don't come back. The next time you hear from me, it will be through my attorney, with divorce papers. Until then, stay away from me. Stay away from this house. Stay away from my family. That baby is my family, Richard said. One last desperate attempt. That's my child. You can't keep me from my own child. Watch me, Grace replied. You're not on the birth certificate. You have no legal rights, no claim. And if you try to establish paternity, I'll make sure the judge hears every detail of how you hoped I'd miscarry, how you tried to stress me into losing the baby, how you called our child a disaster, a problem, something you wished would just go away. No judge will give you custody or even visitation. You'll be lucky if they don't charge you with attempted fetal harm. Richard's face crumpled. For a moment, Grace almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then she remembered the laughter at the gala, the anniversary dinner with Vanessa, the text messages, the stolen money, the lies upon lies upon lies. Goodbye, Richard, Grace said. I'd say it's been nice knowing you, but we both know that would be a lie, and I'm done with lies. She turned and walked back into the house. Didn't look back, didn't wait to see his reaction. Just walked away. Bennett and Claire followed. The door closed behind them. Locked, secured, safe. Grace walked to the living room, sat on the couch, her mother's couch, the one they used to curl up on together for movie nights. She felt the baby kick. Strong, healthy, alive. They had survived. Both of them, against all odds. Bennett appeared with a glass of water. Claire brought a blanket. They settled on either side of Grace, protective, supportive, present. He's going to try again, Grace said. He won't give up that easily. Let him try, Bennett replied. Every attempt he makes, every threat he issues, is more evidence for your custody case. More proof that he's unstable, dangerous, unfit. What if he convinces people I'm lying? What if society sides with him? Society doesn't matter, Claire said firmly. Courts matter. Evidence matters. Truth matters. And Grace, the truth is on your side. Completely, overwhelmingly, undeniably. Richard is finished. He just doesn't know it yet. Grace wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that justice would prevail, that good would triumph over evil, that the system would protect her and her baby. But she had been let down so many times, betrayed so deeply. Trust didn't come easily anymore. I'm exhausted, Grace admitted. Not physically, emotionally. I'm so tired of fighting. Then stop fighting, Bennett said gently. Rest. Let us fight for you. That's what family does. That's what love does. You don't have to be strong right now, Gracie. You just have to survive. We'll handle the rest. Grace leaned against her brother, let herself be held, let herself be weak. She had been trying to be strong for so long. Perfect wife, supportive partner, understanding spouse, all while drowning, all while disappearing, all while losing herself piece by piece, but that was over. She wasn't Richard's wife anymore. Not in any way that mattered. She was Grace Ashford again, the name she was born with, the identity she nearly lost, her mother's daughter, Bennett's sister, her own person. Tell me about the brownstone, Grace said, changing the subject, needing to think about something else, anything else. Tell me what you've done with it over the years. Bennett seemed to understand, started talking about renovations, the new kitchen appliances, the updated bathrooms, the garden that he maintained even though he was rarely here, the piano he had tuned twice a year even though nobody played it, the paintings he had restored professionally, all of it preservation, all of it memory, all of it love. Grace listened, let his voice wash over her, let the familiar surroundings comfort her. This house held 14 years of history, her entire childhood, her mother's final years, the foundation of who she was before the world got complicated. Outside, Grace heard a car start. Richard leaving, defeated, diminished, alone. She didn't feel triumphant, didn't feel victorious, just felt tired, tired and relieved, like a weight had been lifted, like she could finally breathe again. What happens tomorrow? Grace asked. Tomorrow, Claire said, I file divorce papers, citing irreconcilable differences in adultery. I also file for a restraining order, keeping Richard away from you and this property. Then I draft a custody agreement that gives you sole legal and physical custody with no visitation for Richard. We hit him with everything at once, overwhelm him, force him to fight on multiple fronts. Will it work? It will work. Grace, you have to trust me. I'm good at my job, really good, and I'm motivated. Richard hurt someone I love. I'm going to make him pay for that in every legal way possible. Grace nodded, trusted, let go. She had been carrying everything alone for so long, making every decision, solving every problem, protecting everyone's feelings except her own. But not anymore. Now she had help, real help, people who loved her, people who would fight beside her, people who wouldn't let her fall. The baby kicked again. Grace's hand covered the movement. Did you feel that? Bennett's hand joined hers, then Claire's. All three of them connected. Family, chosen and biological. United, strong. That's a fighter, Bennett said, just like their mama. Grace smiled, small, real, the first genuine smile in days, maybe weeks. You think? I know, this baby is going to be strong, brave, stubborn, all the best Ashford traits. And some Hartley traits too, Grace said. The baby is still half Richard. Biology doesn't determine destiny, Claire replied. How you're raised determines who you become. This baby is going to be raised by you, with love, with honesty, with integrity. That's what will matter, not DNA. Grace hoped Claire was right, hoped genetics weren't destiny, hoped her child could be better than their father, hoped love could overcome bad blood. I'm going to be a good mother, Grace said. Not a question, a statement, a promise. You're already a good mother, Bennett replied. You left a bad situation, protected your child from toxicity. That's good mothering. Everything else is just details. They sat together as the sun set outside. The brownstone settled into evening quiet. No more shouting, no more Richard, no more drama, just peace. Fragile peace, temporary peace. But peace, nonetheless. Grace knew it wouldn't last. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Divorce proceedings, federal investigations, public scandal, society judgment. All of it was coming. Inevitable, inescapable. But tonight, Grace was safe, home, protected. And for the first time in months, that was enough. 3 days passed. Grace didn't leave the brownstone, didn't answer calls except from Bennett and Claire, didn't check social media, didn't read news, just existed in a bubble of safety, eating when told to eat, sleeping when exhaustion forced her, sitting in her mother's garden and trying to remember who she used to be. Dr. Ross made house calls, checked Grace's blood pressure, monitored the baby. Each visit brought the same verdict. Physically, Grace was stable. The baby was thriving. But emotionally, Grace was hollow, going through motions, disconnected from reality. It's normal, Dr. Ross assured her. You've experienced significant trauma. Your mind is protecting itself, giving you space to process. But, Grace, you need to talk to someone, a therapist, a counselor, someone trained to help you work through this. Grace nodded, agreed, made no moves to actually find a therapist. Talking meant feeling. Feeling meant pain. Pain meant breaking down completely, and Grace couldn't break down. Not yet. Not while there was still so much to handle, so much to survive. On the fourth night, Grace couldn't sleep. 2 a.m. The house was silent. Bennett was asleep in his old room. Claire had gone home hours ago. Grace lay in her childhood bed and stared at the ceiling. The glow in the dark stars had faded over the years, barely visible now, ghost images of what they used to be. Grace's mind spiraled. Dark thoughts she had been avoiding finally caught up. What if she couldn't do this? What if single motherhood was too hard? What if she failed her child the way her father failed her by dying? The way her mother failed her by getting sick? The way Richard failed her by being Richard? I don't know how to do this, Grace whispered to the empty room. I'm 30 years old, no job, no career. I gave up everything for a man who was planning to leave me. How do I explain this to my child? How do I tell my baby that their father is in prison? That their father never wanted them? That their father hoped they would just disappear? How do I do this alone? The questions spiraled faster. What if her baby looked like Richard? What if every time Grace looked at her child, she saw his face, his lies, his cruelty? What if she couldn't love her baby because of who the father was? Grace sat up, swung her legs over the side of the bed. The room spun. She gripped the mattress edge, breathed, in through the mouth, out through the mouth. Panic attack. She recognized the symptoms, had been having them on and off for months. Richard always said she was being dramatic, that she needed to calm down, that she was making herself sick with worry. Maybe he was right. Maybe this was all her fault. Maybe if she had been a better wife, more attentive, more attractive, more something, maybe Richard wouldn't have cheated, wouldn't have stolen, wouldn't have tried to destroy her. No, Grace stopped that thought, forced it away. That was Richard's voice in her head, the gaslighting he had perfected over 6 years, making her doubt herself, making her responsible for his choices. That was manipulation, abuse, not truth. Grace stood, walked downstairs in the dark. She knew this house by heart. Every creak, every corner, every step. Muscle memory from childhood. The kitchen light was on. Someone left it on. Bennett probably. He always did. Just in case Grace needed something. Grace made tea, chamomile, caffeine-free, doctor approved. She sat at the farmhouse table, the same table where she had eaten breakfast before school every morning, where she had done homework every afternoon, where she had sat with her mother the night before she died, holding her hand, promising to be strong. I'm trying, Mom, Grace said to the empty kitchen. I'm trying to be strong. But I don't feel strong. I feel broken, scared, completely lost. The house settled around her, old wood expanding and contracting. Normal sounds. But in the darkness, they felt ominous, like the house itself was judging her, finding her lacking. Disappointed that Grace Ashford had turned into Grace Hartley, had lost herself in a marriage, had failed to see what everyone else saw. Grace's phone buzzed, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her look. Text message. This is Vanessa. Can we talk? Grace stared at the screen. Vanessa. The woman who laughed when Grace fell. The woman who slept with Grace's husband. The woman who helped him steal. The woman who encouraged him to stress Grace into miscarrying. That Vanessa wanted to talk. Grace should delete it. Block the number. Pretend it never happened. But curiosity won. Or maybe self-destruction. Grace responded. Why? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, because you were right about everything. And I'm sorry. Sorry, Vanessa was sorry. The word felt meaningless, insufficient. But Grace responded anyway. Where are you? Diner in Queens, the one on Steinway Street. I know it's late, but I couldn't sleep. If you want to talk, I'll wait. Grace shouldn't go, should stay home, stay safe, stay away from the woman who helped destroy her life. But Grace stood, got dressed, left a note for Bennett, took a car service to Queens, arrived at the diner 30 minutes later. The place was nearly empty, just overnight workers, insomniacs, people with nowhere else to be. Vanessa sat in a corner booth, no makeup, sweatpants, hair in a messy ponytail. She looked young, vulnerable, human. Grace slid into the booth across from her, said nothing, just waited. Thank you for coming, Vanessa said. Her voice was quiet, stripped of the confidence Grace remembered. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I would either. They sat in silence. A waitress brought coffee. Grace waved it away, ordered decaf tea. Vanessa didn't order anything, just sat there, hands wrapped around a mug that was already empty. I turned evidence, Vanessa said without preamble. Federal prosecutors, everything. Emails, texts, account numbers. Richard's going to prison. Because of me. Good. I'm going too, probably. But they're talking reduced sentence. Cooperation agreement. Maybe 3 years instead of 20. Why are you telling me this? Vanessa looked up. Met Grace's eyes. Because you showed me mercy. When you didn't have to. You could have destroyed me. Instead, you gave me a way out. Nobody's ever done that before. Grace remembered the confrontation at the brownstone, when Grace told Vanessa to turn evidence, to cooperate, to take accountability. She had said it not from kindness, from strategy, but Vanessa interpreted it as mercy. I didn't do it for you, Grace said. I did it to destroy Richard. I know, but it saved me anyway. Vanessa pulled an envelope from her bag, slid it across the table. Richard has another offshore account, one the investigators don't know about yet. It's in the Seychelles, about $800,000. Money he skimmed before I got involved. Here's the account information. Grace didn't touch the envelope. Why are you giving this to me? Because it should be yours, for the baby, for what he put you through, and because turning this over completes my cooperation agreement. Gets me the reduced sentence, so I'm helping myself, but I'm helping you too. Win-win. If I take this, I'm complicit in his fraud. Not if you turn it over through your lawyer as a good faith disclosure during divorce proceedings. You're just being thorough, documenting all marital assets. Vanessa smiled, small, sad. Your lawyer will know how to handle it legally. Grace picked up the envelope, felt its weight, $800,000. Clean money, or clean enough. Money that could secure her future, her baby's future. Money Richard tried to hide while claiming he couldn't afford child support. I need to tell you something, Vanessa continued. The pregnancy, the fake pregnancy, that was Richard's idea. He wanted you to feel like you couldn't compete, like even if you divorced him, he'd moved on, started a new family. He wanted you to feel worthless. Grace had known this. Marcus's investigation found the fake pregnancy tests, but hearing it from Vanessa made it real, made it hurt in a new way. Why did you agree to it? Because I was stupid, 26 years old, thought I was in love, thought Richard would leave you for me. He promised he would, said you were cold, that you didn't understand him, that the marriage was dead, that you trapped him with the pregnancy. Vanessa laughed bitterly. I believed every word. Believed I was special, different. The one who really understood him. Did he tell you about the other women? Vanessa's head snapped up. What other women? There were others before you, a paralegal at his firm 3 years ago, a client's daughter 2 years ago, probably more I don't know about. You weren't special, Vanessa, you were just next in line. The color drained from Vanessa's face. He told me I was the only one, that he'd never cheated before me, that what we had was different. He lied. That's what Richard does. He leads, he manipulates, he takes vulnerable women and makes them feel special. Then he uses them, discards them, moves on to the next one. You and I are just two in a long line of women he destroyed. Vanessa started crying. Quiet tears, not dramatic, just sad. I wasted 2 years of my life on him, became a criminal for him, lost myself for him, and I was just another conquest, another disposable woman. Grace should have felt satisfaction, vindication, but mostly she felt tired. And something like sympathy. Vanessa was 26, Grace was 30. 4 years didn't seem like much. But they were 4 years of experience, 4 years of learning who to trust, 4 years of building boundaries. Vanessa didn't have those years yet. She was still learning, still making mistakes. What will you do? Grace asked. After prison? I don't know. My parents won't talk to me. My friends have all disappeared. My career is over. I have nothing. I am nothing. You're 26 years old. You made terrible choices. You hurt people. You hurt me. But you're not irredeemable. 3 years is enough time to get a degree. Learn a trade. Figure out who you want to be. You can rebuild. How? Who's going to hire a convicted felon? Plenty of places. If you own your mistakes, take responsibility. Show genuine remorse. People believe in redemption, Vanessa. But you have to earn it. You have to do the work. Vanessa wiped her eyes. Why are you being nice to me? I destroyed your life. You didn't destroy my life. You participated in damaging it. But Richard destroyed it. Or tried to. The difference is important. And I'm not being nice. I'm being realistic. You're going to prison. You're going to lose everything. Punishing you more than that accomplishes nothing. What I want is for you to actually change, actually become better, actually do something worthwhile with the rest of your life. That's better revenge than anything else I could do to you. They sat in silence. The diner was nearly empty now, just them and one overnight trucker. Grace's tea had gone cold. She didn't reorder, just sat there. Two women destroyed by the same man. Finding something like understanding, not forgiveness, not friendship, but recognition, shared experience, common ground. He never loved me, Vanessa said quietly. Did he? No, I don't think Richard is capable of loving anyone except himself. Did he ever love you? Grace thought about it, really thought. I don't know, maybe in the beginning, or maybe I just wanted to believe he did. Maybe I love the idea of being loved more than I love the actual person. I don't know anymore. I'm sorry, Vanessa said again. For all of it? For sleeping with your husband, for laughing when you fell, for the fake pregnancy, for encouraging him to hurt you, for everything. I know sorry isn't enough, but I am sorry. I know, Grace said, and she did. Vanessa's regret was genuine. Too late, too little, but genuine. I'm sorry too. For what? You didn't do anything wrong? I stayed too long, ignored too many signs, let him isolate me from people who cared, let myself become small. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. Sorry I didn't see clearly sooner. Sorry I let it get this bad before I left. That's not your fault. That's what abusers do. They make you doubt yourself, make you think you're the problem. That's not weakness. That's trauma. Grace looked at Vanessa, really looked. Saw intelligence there, and pain, and genuine remorse. This woman had made terrible choices, had hurt people, had broken laws, but she wasn't a monster, just damaged, lost, young. Not so different from Grace at 26, before Richard, before marriage, before everything got complicated. What will you do? Vanessa asked. After the divorce, after Richard goes to prison? I'm going to raise my baby, figure out who I am without him. Maybe go back to work. I was an art curator before. I was good at it. I loved it. I gave it up because Richard said he wanted a wife who could focus on family. But I miss it. Miss having something that was mine. You'll be good at it again. You'll be good at being a mother too. I can tell. How can you tell? Because you had the strength to leave, to protect your baby from toxicity. That's good mothering right there, Lem. Everything else is just details. Grace finished her cold tea, stood, tucked the envelope into her bag. I hope you use your time in prison wisely. Get your degree. Figure out who you want to be. Come out better than you went in. That's the best thing you can do now. What about you? What do you hope for yourself? Grace thought about it. What did she hope for? Not happiness. That felt too abstract, too far away, something simpler, more achievable. Peace, I hope for peace, and maybe someday joy. But right now, I'd settle for peace. Vanessa stood, held out her hand. Grace looked at it. That hand had touched Richard, had signed fraudulent documents, had helped destroy Grace's life. But it was also the hand offering her $800,000, offering cooperation, offering something like closure. Grace shook it, brief, businesslike. Goodbye, Vanessa. I hope you find what you're looking for. You too, Grace. You deserve it. You really do. Grace left the diner, walked out into the pre-dawn darkness. Queens was quiet, peaceful, the city sleeping before the chaos of morning. She stood on the sidewalk and breathed. In, out, in, out. Her baby kicked. Strong, insistent, alive. Mama met the other woman today, Grace said to her belly. The woman who wanted you to disappear. But you know what? She's not a monster. She's just a person. A damaged person. Like all of us. Like me. Like everyone. The car service arrived. Grace climbed in, gave the address, leaned back against the seat. She felt lighter. The envelope in her bag was heavy, but her heart was lighter. She had looked Vanessa in the eye, had seen her humanity, had offered something like mercy, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement, recognition that people could change, could choose better. The brownstone was dark when Grace arrived. Bennett's light was on. He must have woken up, seen her note, worried. Grace let herself in quietly, climbed the stairs slowly. Bennett's door opened before she reached it. You okay? He asked. Concern etched on his face. Yeah, I'm okay. I met with Vanessa. You what? She texted, asked to talk. I went. We talked. She gave me information about another offshore account, $800,000. And she apologized, really apologized. Bennett ran his hand through his hair. Grace, that was dangerous. Meeting her alone, at night, she could have hurt you. She could have, but she didn't. She's just a girl, Bennett. A stupid girl who made terrible choices. She's not evil. Just damaged. Damaged people can be dangerous. So can I, so can you, so can anyone. Grace handed him the envelope. Give this to Claire. Tell her to turn it over properly, through legal channels. I don't want Richard's stolen money, but I'll take what's legally mine, what I'm entitled to as his wife. Bennett took the envelope. You sure you're okay? No, I'm not okay. I'm 7 months pregnant, getting divorced. My husband is going to prison. My life is a public scandal. I'm not okay at all. Grace smiled, small, sad, real. But I'm going to be, eventually. That's enough for now. She went to her room, closed the door, lay down on the bed. The glow and the dark stars were completely invisible now, but Grace knew they were there, hidden, waiting, ready to shine again when darkness came. Grace closed her eyes, thought about Vanessa, about Richard, about the baby growing inside her, about the future stretching out unknown and terrifying and full of possibility. She thought about her mother, about the painting of the sunrise, about the promise of light after darkness. I'm going to be okay, Grace whispered. We're going to be okay. I don't know how yet, but we will be. For the first time in days, she believed it. 1 week passed. Grace settled into a routine. Wake at 7, breakfast with Bennett, walk in the garden, rest, lunch, afternoon reading. Dinner, sleep, simple, structured, healing. Claire visited every day, brought updates. Richard had been arrested, charged with securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering. Bail set at $5 million. He couldn't make it. Margaret Hartley refused to help. Richard's friends disappeared. He was alone in a jail cell, waiting for trial. Vanessa had been arrested too. Different charges, lesser role, but arrested nonetheless. She was cooperating fully, giving prosecutors everything they needed. Her attorney was confident about the reduced sentence. The divorce papers were filed. Claire was ruthless. Sole custody to Grace, no visitation rights for Richard. All marital assets to be divided. Restraining order, keeping Richard away from Grace in the brownstone. Temporary child support of $10,000 per month starting immediately. Richard's lawyer tried to fight, sent letters, made threats. Claire destroyed every argument, cited the affair, the fraud, the text messages about hoping for a miscarriage. Richard had no defense, no leverage, no power. "He's done," Claire said over coffee one morning. "Completely done. His reputation is destroyed, his business is gone, his clients are suing. The Bar Association is investigating whether to disbar him. Everything he built is collapsing, and it's his own fault." Grace should have felt satisfied, victorious, but mostly she felt empty, hollow, like she had won a battle but lost something essential in the fighting. Her innocence maybe, her ability to trust, her belief that people were fundamentally good. "I don't care about Richard anymore," Grace admitted. "I just want this to be over. Want to move forward, want to forget he exists." "Soon," Claire promised. "The divorce will be final in 6 months. New York law. But Grace, you're free now. Really free. Richard has no power over you, no way to hurt you. You've won." But winning felt hollow. Grace went through motions, did what was expected, smiled when appropriate, said the right things, but inside she was numb, processing, healing in ways that weren't visible, in ways that took time. On the 10th day, Grace's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. "Hello? Grace, it's Linda Morrison from the museum." Grace sat up straight. Linda, her former boss, the woman Grace had worked under for 3 years before marrying Richard, before giving up her career to be a proper society wife. "Linda, hi, how are you?" "I'm good. Listen, I know this is out of the blue, and I know you've been going through a lot. The news has been everywhere. I'm so sorry, Grace. You didn't deserve any of that." "Thank you. I'm calling because I have a proposition. We have a grant-funded research position, cataloging restoration documentation for our permanent collection. It's part-time, flexible hours. You could work from home mostly, only come in when you want to. And Grace, I know you're pregnant. I know you have a baby coming. This position is designed for that. For mothers, for women who need flexibility. I immediately thought of you." Grace's breath caught. A job, real work, something that was hers, something Richard couldn't touch or ruin or take away. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it. The pay is modest. $60,000 a year for 20 hours a week. Not what you made before. But it's steady, it's meaningful. And Grace, I've missed having you on my team. You were the best curator I ever worked with. The most talented, the most passionate. I'd love to have you back, in whatever capacity works for you." Tears burned Grace's eyes, good tears, grateful tears. "Can I start after the baby is born? I'm due in 2 months." "Absolutely. Take all the maternity leave you need. The position doesn't officially start until January anyway. That's 4 months from now. Plenty of time to have the baby, recover, adjust. When you're ready, we'll be here." "Then yes, I want the position. Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. Thank you for saying yes. Welcome back, Grace. We've missed you." Linda hung up. Grace sat there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. She had a job, a real job, something to look forward to, something to build toward. Her future wasn't just single motherhood and survival. It was work she loved, purpose, identity beyond wife and mother. Grace stood, walked downstairs, found Bennett in the study, working on his laptop. "I have a job," she announced. Bennett looked up, smiled. "You do?" "Museum curator, part-time, flexible hours, starting in January. Linda Morrison called and offered me a position." "That's incredible, Gracie. Congratulations." "I have a career again. Something that's mine, something I'm good at, something that matters." Bennett closed his laptop, stood, pulled Grace into a hug. "You've always been good at that. I'm so glad you're going back to it. Mom would be proud." Grace hugged him back, held on tight. Her brother, her protector, the person who never gave up on her even when she gave up on herself. "Thank you for keeping me safe, for fighting for me, for everything." "You don't have to thank me. That's what family does." That afternoon, Grace did something she hadn't done in weeks. She opened her laptop, logged into her old email account, the one from before Richard, the one with her maiden name, Grace Ashford, not Grace Hartley, never Grace Hartley again. There were emails, hundreds of them. Most were spam, but some were from old friends, college roommates, former coworkers, people who had fallen away during her marriage, people she had stopped calling because Richard always had reasons they couldn't visit, couldn't attend parties, couldn't maintain friendships. Grace started responding, one email at a time, short messages. "Hi, I know it's been years. I'm sorry I disappeared. I got lost in my marriage, but I'm back now. I'd love to reconnect if you're interested." Most people didn't respond. Too much time had passed, too much distance. Grace didn't blame them. She had been a bad friend, absent, unavailable, wrapped up in Richard's world to the exclusion of everything else. But some people responded, warmly, enthusiastically. "Oh my God, Grace, I've been thinking about you. Can we grab coffee, catch up? I want to hear everything." Grace scheduled coffee dates, 3 of them, for after the baby was born. Small steps, rebuilding her social circle, reconnecting with people who knew her before, who remembered who she was when she was happy. That evening, Grace went to the garden, her mother's garden. The roses were in full bloom, pink and white and yellow, beautiful, thriving. Grace sat on the wooden bench her father had built, ran her hands over worn wood, smooth from years of use, years of family sitting here, talking, laughing, being together. The baby kicked. Grace's hand covered the movement. "You're going to love this garden," she said. "Your grandmother planted these roses. Your grandfather built this bench. Your uncle maintained it all these years. This is your family, little one. This is where you come from. Love, strength, resilience, that's your legacy." The sun was setting. Golden light filtered through the trees. Grace watched shadows lengthen, listened to city sounds, cars, sirens, people, life continuing all around her. The world didn't stop because her marriage ended, didn't pause because she was in pain. It just kept moving. And Grace was moving with it now. Forward, always forward. "I'm not the same person I was before Richard," Grace said to the roses, to her mother's memory, to herself. "I'm different now, harder, more careful, less trusting, but also stronger, wiser, more sure of myself. I know what I won't tolerate now. I know my worth. That's something." A memory surfaced. Her mother, the year before she died, sitting on this very bench. Grace was 16, crying over a boy who broke her heart. Her mother held her, stroked her hair, said something Grace hadn't understood then. "Heartbreak teaches you who you are, not who you wish you were, not who you pretend to be, who you actually are. When everything is stripped away, when you're alone with your pain, that's when you discover your true self." Grace understood now. Richard had broken her heart, broken her trust, broken her illusions. But in the breaking, she had discovered herself, the real Grace, not the perfect wife, not the society hostess, not the woman who made herself small to fit into someone else's life. Just Grace, flawed, scared, but real. "I found myself, Mom," Grace whispered. "It hurt. God, it hurt so much, but I found myself, and I'm not going to lose her again. I promise, Bah." The garden grew dark. Grace stood carefully, walked back inside. Bennett was cooking dinner, something that smelled amazing Italian, Grace's favorite. Hungry? Bennett asked. Starving. They ate together, talked about nothing important. Work, weather, the baby's nursery that needed to be set up, normal conversation, comfortable silence, the rhythm of family. Grace had forgotten what this felt like. Being with someone who didn't want anything from her, didn't need her to perform, didn't judge, just accepted. After dinner, Grace went to her room, pulled out the journal she had been keeping, opened to a blank page, started writing. Dear baby, today I got my life back. Not the life I had before your father. Something different. Something better. I got a job. Reconnected with old friends. Sat in your grandmother's garden and remembered who I am. I'm still scared, still unsure about the future. Still healing from everything that happened. But I'm also hopeful. For the first time in months, I'm actually hopeful. You're going to be born into love. Real love. Not the conditional kind your father offered, the kind that doesn't require you to be perfect, to perform, to pretend, just love for existing, for being you. I can't wait to meet you, can't wait to show you this garden, this house, this family. You're going to have the best uncle in the world, the best Aunt and Claire, the best grandmother's memory, and a mother who's learning every day how to be stronger, how to be better, how to be enough. I love you already, more than I knew was possible, more than anything. Always. Mom. Grace closed the journal, set it aside, lay back on the bed. The baby kicked. Grace smiled, closed her eyes, let sleep come. Peaceful sleep, healing sleep. The kind that came from knowing the worst was over. The storm had passed, sunlight was breaking through. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight Grace was safe. Home, hopeful, and that was enough. 2 weeks later, Grace stood in front of the bathroom mirror, 8 months pregnant now, enormous, swollen, uncomfortable, but healthy. The baby was strong, active, growing exactly as expected. Dr. Ross was pleased. Blood pressure stable, no signs of preeclampsia. Grace was cleared for normal activity, within reason. Today was Richard's arraignment. Grace didn't have to attend. Claire said it was optional. But Grace wanted to be there. One wanted Richard to see her, wanted him to know she was still standing, still strong, still here. She dressed carefully, navy blue dress that fit her pregnant body, simple jewelry, hair styled, makeup done. She looked good, healthy, put together, not like a victim, like a woman who had survived, who was thriving. Bennett drove her to the courthouse. Claire met them outside. You sure about this? Claire asked. It's going to be intense. Media, spectators, Richard's family, everyone's going to be there. I'm sure I need to see this, need to watch him face consequences, for me, for closure. They entered through a side door, avoiding reporters. The courtroom was packed, society people, Richard's former clients, lawyers, journalists. Everyone wanted to watch the fall of Richard Hartley. From hedge fund darling to federal criminal, it was the scandal of the season. Grace sat in the gallery, Bennett on one side, Claire on the other. Protected, supported. She kept her head high, didn't hide, didn't shrink. Let people stare, let them whisper. She had nothing to be ashamed of, nothing to hide. The bailiff called court to order. Everyone stood. Judge Harrison entered. Older woman, stern expression, no nonsense demeanor. She sat. Everyone else sat. The door opened. Richard was brought in. Orange jumpsuit, handcuffs, shackles. He looked smaller, diminished, gray under the fluorescent lights. His eyes scanned the courtroom, looking for friendly faces, found none. Then they landed on Grace. For a moment, they just stared at each other. 6 years of marriage, reduced to this. Him in chains, her free, him guilty, her vindicated. The expression on his face was complex, surprise, anger, something that might have been regret, but probably wasn't. Grace didn't react, didn't smile, didn't glare, just looked at him with complete indifference. The opposite of love wasn't hate, it was apathy. And Grace felt nothing. He was a stranger, a criminal, someone she used to know, nothing more. The judge read the charges: securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. Each charge carried years of prison time. The prosecution outlined the case: $8 million stolen, 12 victims, 18 months of systematic theft, documentation, evidence, witnesses. The case was airtight. Richard's lawyer tried to argue for reasonable bail, cited Richard's ties to the community, his clean record, his cooperation. The judge was unmoved. Mr. Hartley has access to millions of dollars hidden in offshore accounts, Judge Harrison said. He is an extreme flight risk. He has demonstrated willingness to commit federal crimes. Bail is set at $5 million cash. No bond, cash only. Richard's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Richard was going to stay in jail. No bail, no freedom, not until trial, which could be 9 to 12 months away, maybe longer. Margaret Hartley stood. Your Honor, I'd like to address the court. Proceed. I'm Richard's mother. I want the record to show that our family does not condone these alleged actions. We are deeply disappointed. We will not be providing financial support. Richard will have to face these consequences alone. Grace watched Margaret sit down, wash her hands of her bun, protect the family name, prioritize reputation over relationship. Margaret had never been warm, but this was cold even for her. Complete abandonment. The judge moved to sentencing dates, preliminary hearings, discovery schedules, legal procedurals that Grace only half understood. But the important part was clear. Richard wasn't getting out, wasn't going free, would spend the next year in jail waiting for trial, then decades in prison after conviction. Vanessa was arraigned separately, different courtroom. Grace didn't attend that one, didn't need to. Claire reported back, 3-year plea deal. Vanessa would serve 18 months with good behavior. Start in minimum security, get out young enough to rebuild. Harsh punishment, but survivable. Court adjourned. Richard was led away. He looked back once, at Grace. She met his eyes, felt nothing, no anger, no sadness, just emptiness where love used to be, where marriage used to exist. Nothing remained but history, bad history. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, cameras, microphones, questions shouted. Mrs. Hartley, how do you feel? Are you relieved? Will you divorce him? When is the baby due? Bennett's security team created a path. Grace walked through, head high. She stopped once, looked at the cameras, spoke clearly. I feel free. That was all. 3 words. But they said everything. Grace Hartley was done being a victim, done being defined by her husband's choices, done hiding. She was free. Finally, completely, absolutely. The clip went viral. Grace's face, pregnant, dignified, strong, saying those 3 words. I feel free. It became a meme, a rallying cry. Women everywhere shared it, commented, related, saw themselves in Grace's journey, from victim to survivor, from trapped to liberated, from broken to whole. Grace's Instagram, dormant for months, suddenly had followers, thousands of them. Women sending messages, sharing their own stories, finding strength in Grace's strength, finding hope in her survival. Grace read them, every single one. Women who had been cheated on, gaslit, abused. Women who felt alone, invisible, worthless. Women who needed to know they could leave, could survive, could thrive. Grace started responding, not to all of them, but to some. Short messages. You're stronger than you think. You deserve better. You can do this. Simple words, but powerful, because they came from someone who had been there, who understood, who had survived. 1 week later, Grace received notification. The divorce was progressing. Richard wasn't contesting, wasn't fighting. He signed everything Claire put in front of him. Sole custody to Grace. All marital assets to be divided. No visitation rights. Clean break. The penthouse sold. Too many bad memories. Too much Richard. Grace took half the proceeds. $2 million, added to the $800,000 from the Seychelles account. The insurance payout, the stock portfolio, her half of everything. Grace was financially secure. Her baby would want for nothing. But more than money, Grace had herself back. Her identity, or her career, her future. Those were worth more than any dollar amount. 2 weeks before her due date, Grace did something she had been avoiding. She went back to the penthouse. One last time, to get her mother's photo album, her personal items, things too precious to let movers handle. The penthouse was empty, sterile, already staged for sale. Nothing remained of the life Grace built here, or thought she built. Looking around, Grace realized she had never lived here. Not really. She had existed, performed, played the role of Mrs. Richard Hartley, but she had never actually lived. Grace collected her things, the photo album, her journals, her mother's necklace, her grandmother's ring, personal items with history, with meaning. Everything else could stay, be sold, disposed of. She wanted nothing that reminded her of Richard. On her way out, Grace stopped, looked around one last time. The penthouse that was supposed to be her dream home, her perfect life. It was just a building, just walls and floors and expensive furniture. Nothing real, nothing lasting, nothing that mattered. Goodbye, Grace said to the empty space. Thank you for the lessons. But I'm done now. Done with pretending, done with performing, done with being someone I'm not. She left, didn't look back. The door closed behind her with finality. That chapter was over, completely, irrevocably, only forward now, only future, only new beginnings. Grace returned to the brownstone, her real home, where her family lived, where memories were genuine, where love was unconditional. She arranged her mother's photos in her room, hung the paintings, created space that was hers, that reflected who she actually was. Bennett helped her set up the nursery, the third bedroom, small but perfect. They painted walls soft yellow, built the crib together, hung curtains, created a space full of light in hope and possibility, a space for new life, new generation, new story. Your baby is going to love this, Bennett said. Going to grow up surrounded by family, by love, by people who would do anything to protect them. I know, Grace said. She ran her hand over the crib rail, smooth wood, sturdy, safe. This baby is going to know security, stability, unconditional love, everything I had growing up, everything Richard couldn't give. Everything Richard wouldn't give, Bennett corrected. He had the capacity. He just chose not to, chose himself instead. That's not inability, that's selfishness. Grace nodded. Bennett was right. Richard wasn't incapable of love. He was unwilling, too self-absorbed, too entitled, too broken to give anyone else what they needed. That wasn't Grace's fault, wasn't her failure. It was his choice, his loss. The baby kicked, strong, insistent. Grace smiled. Soon, she said to her belly, just a few more weeks, then you get to meet all these people who love you already, who can't wait to hold you, to protect you, to watch you grow. That night, Grace couldn't sleep, too uncomfortable, too pregnant, too anxious about the impending birth. She lay in bed, stared at the ceiling, thought about everything that had happened, everything she had survived, everything she had learned. She reached for her journal, started writing. 10 things I learned from leaving. 1, you can survive things you thought would destroy you. 2, the people who really love you will fight for you. 3, healing isn't linear. Some days are better than others. 4, you're stronger than you know. 5, it's okay to ask for help. 6, your worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to see it. 7, starting over isn't failure, it's courage. 8, the right people will celebrate your growth. 9, you don't have to forgive to move forward. 10, the life you build after loss is often better than what you lost. Grace closed the journal, set it aside. The baby kicked again. Grace's hand covered the movement. You're going to be born into a new life, a better life, a life your mother chose, fought for, survived to create. I'm so proud of that, so grateful, so ready. She closed her eyes. Let sleep come finally. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, Grace was at peace, complete peace, for the first time in years. And that was worth everything she had been through to get here. Grace went into labor at 3 in the morning. Sharp pain woke her, immediate, unmistakable. Her baby was coming. Bennett was there in seconds. Grabbed the hospital bag, called for a car. The contractions were strong, regular, 5 minutes apart. This was happening. Labor lasted 12 hours. Difficult, exhausting. But Bennett held her hand through every contraction. Claire arrived at hour 6 with encouragement and ice chips. Dr. Ross was calm, professional, supportive. You're doing beautifully, Grace. Just a little longer. At 2:17 in the afternoon, Judith Hope Ashford was born. 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. Dr. Ross placed her on Grace's chest. Mother and daughter, skin to skin. Grace looked down at her baby and felt love so overwhelming it hurt. Hi, Judith. I'm your mama. I'm so happy you're here. Judith opened her eyes, looked at Grace like she recognized her mother's voice. They stared at each other, bound forever, inseparable. Bennett stood beside the bed with tears on his face. She's beautiful, Gracie. Mom would have loved her. The nurse brought paperwork, birth certificate. Father's name? Grace didn't hesitate. Leave it blank, just mother. Grace Ashford. Judith Hope Ashford. Not Hartley, never Hartley. Richard would have no claim, no rights, no access. And that was exactly how Grace wanted it. 2 weeks later, Grace received the news. Richard's trial was set. He remained in jail, unable to make bail. Alone, his family had abandoned him. His friends disappeared. His life was destroyed. Grace felt nothing. No satisfaction, no revenge pleasure. Just closure. He was irrelevant now. A footnote in her story. The villain she survived. Nothing more. The divorce was finalized 90 days after filing. Grace Elizabeth Ashford. Herself again. Complete. Whole. Free. 3 months after Judith's birth, Grace started working part-time from home, cataloging restoration documentation for the museum. It was everything she needed. She loved it. Remembered why she was good at it. 6 months later, Linda called with bigger news. We're creating a new curator position. European paintings. It's yours if you want it. Full benefits, flexible hours, childcare stipend. Grace accepted. Her career was back, better than before, on her terms. 1 year after Judith's birth, Grace stood in the garden holding her daughter. Judith was walking now, babbling, full of life. She looked like Grace. Green eyes, dark hair, strong personality. See that? Grace pointed to her mother's painting, visible through the nursery window. That's a sunrise. Your grandmother painted it. She knew something important. No matter how dark the night gets, morning always comes. Always. Judith touched the window, left tiny handprints. Grace didn't wipe them away. Evidence of life, of presence, of her daughter's existence. Grace's phone buzzed. Text from Vanessa. She was in prison, 8 months into her sentence. Taking college courses. Actually changing. Judith's first birthday soon, right? I made her something in art class. Can I send it? Grace considered, then responded, yes, thank you. Forgiveness was complicated, but Grace could acknowledge growth, could recognize genuine change. On Judith's second birthday, Grace threw a party at the brownstone. Bennett, Claire, Linda, museum colleagues, mom friends, real community, real family. Judith ran through the garden chasing bubbles, laughing, pure joy. She wore a yellow dress with frosting on her face, completely, perfectly happy. After everyone left, Grace stood in the garden where she had stood 2 years ago, broken, scared, unsure if she could survive. She had survived, more than survived, thrived. That evening, Detective Morrison called. Richard tried to contact you from prison, letter, phone calls. We intercepted them. He wants to see Judith, to be a father. Grace's answer was immediate. No, he doesn't get that. Not now. Not ever. She hung up. checked on Judith, sound asleep with the stuffed elephant Bennett had given her. Grace adjusted the blanket, kissed her forehead. Your father wants to meet you, but he doesn't get to, because wanting something doesn't mean deserving it. You're mine, you're ours, you're Ashford. Not Hartley, never Hartley. Grace returned to her room. Wrote one final journal entry about Richard. Richard called from prison, wants to meet Judith. My answer is no. Will always be no. Not because I'm cruel, because I'm protective. Judith deserves better than a father who hopes she'd never be born. I don't hate Richard anymore. Don't love him. Don't feel anything. He's a stranger. A cautionary tale. My life is better without him. Judith's life is better without him. We are complete, whole, happy. Goodbye, Richard. Again. Finally. Forever. Grace closed the journal. Felt lighter. Freer. Richard was truly in her past now. Just history. Bad history. But history nonetheless. Grace's story didn't end with revenge. It ended with something better. Freedom. Peace. A life she built on her own terms. She took the worst betrayal imaginable and turned it into her greatest transformation. And here's what I want you to know. If you're going through something similar, if you're trapped in a situation where everyone sees what you refuse to see, if you're scared to leave because you don't know how you'll survive, Grace's story is proof. You can survive. You will survive. And on the other side is a life more beautiful than you can imagine right now. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. It helps other women find these stories when they need them most. Drop a comment telling me what moment hit you hardest. Was it the gala, the confrontation, the moment Grace finally said no? I read every single comment, and your stories inspire me. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes we can't say the words ourselves, but we can share a story that says them for us. And if you want more stories like this, stories about women who survived, who fought back, who rebuilt from nothing, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every week I bring you a new story of strength, of survival, of women who refuse to stay broken. Remember, after darkness, there is always light. Always. I'll see you in the next story.